And we are up. This is episode number 31 of the Our Town podcast, coming to you from North Alabama. My guest has been in North Alabama since I think 2006, and I'll introduce her in a little bit. I've been here for all of 9.5 months, maybe just shy of 9.5. But I want to continue to emphasize that as the podcasts get longer, that's the whole goal or the whole spirit behind long form podcasts. Please go into the YouTube timeline. They're now in chapters, so there'll be somewhat of a guided search to the different sections of interest, right? So if you don't have time for the whole podcast and you just want to pick certain segments to listen to, that's all there. And then on the audio side and the Spotify side, and even in the YouTube side, if you want, you can see the timeline in narrative form. So YouTube's pretty smart. It'll just take the narrative and just go ahead and it knows what to do and it chops it up into chapters. But for everybody else, you've got to kind of look down in the show description and the show notes, and it'll have a little say, oh, at 3 minutes and 26 seconds, we start talking about this. The other thing I want to mention, and let me pull this up on the screen, is our upcoming schedule. Episode 32, Eric Gonzalez works for Commercial or Chase Commercial, and then he is the president of North Alabama Commercial Real Estate. Then I'm excited about all my guests, but Josh Carey is the play-by-play announcer for the Rocket City Trash Pandas. So he's on TV, he's on the radio, it's just him and his dog. And the announcer you hear in the stadium, if you've been to a game, is Toni Mack, and he was my episode 4. You'll see Ricky Fernandez down on the field, who's an on-field MC. He was my episode 1 and my episode 20. Josh will be in here. He's the grandson of the famous Harry Carey, who was the play-by-play for the Chicago Cubs for years and years, and often kind of parodied by Will Ferrell. But I'm excited to talk to Josh. He gets to cover 138 minor league games in a season. You know, half of them at home, half of them away. So that'll be fun. Rhonda Sutton from AUSA is coming in. Jessica Brown from First Stop. And there's a correlation with my guest today and kind of First Stop and actually one of our guest new employees that she has. Britt Silcox I met in January at a Trash Pandas event. She owns Bright Eyed Brands. Then the next 4, I don't necessarily have those scheduled as episodes, but they will all happen by mid-December. So Rachel Sullivan, good friend of our guest today from Solid Ground Counseling Center. Cynthia Parker from the National Children's Advocacy Center. And then this will be a fun one, Dusty LaBar. He's a host along with 3 of his buddies from Reaching for the Bars podcast, and I believe they're at CrossFit Invigorate. And John Allen, who was episode 26, works out with those guys and knows them. So that'll be a fun episode. And then David Anderson from Invariant. He's I think he's from Arab originally. But so that's kind of a glimpse at what's coming up. I wanted to make sure that people knew that I don't just fly by the seat of my pants, and this is kind of what goes week by week. But she can hardly contain herself. Here's our guest today, and she's actually the sponsor of this episode as well. So Megan Nivens-Tannett from Flourish Consulting Services, but she's also the host of her own podcast called SheBoss. And she's both sponsoring our episode today and our featured guest. And how are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so glad to be here. That is quite a lineup you have, too.
I know, right?
Holy cow. I'm like, I can't compete with that.
No, you can't.
You have some great guests.
Well, so. The part of the reason I wanted to go through that was we had a lot of episodes related to kind of economic development and with the Singing River Trail and Launch 2035 and the Committee of 100. And so we kind of wrapped that up with Rob Hamilton, which episode was published today. And I know you know Rob, and you saw a nice picture on LinkedIn where you were a guest professor at UAH for his management.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah, that's a secret dream of mine, is to be a teacher.
Oh yeah.
Like one of these days, maybe I can go have a class of my own. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was taking I think I took a venture capital class once as part of my MBA, and the professor said the same thing. I always wanted to teach, but I didn't want to teach first. I wanted to do something in industry or in a different profession, and then be an instructor, which he is doing now. But yeah, that's a good glimpse of what's coming up. So I think what we should do is give a shout out right away to Morgan Vick. And I know that I was listening to one of your episodes, and it was kind of commented that, as I think you were with the guest, it might have been Peggy Lee Wright, I'm not sure, where before you guys went live, you were kind of talking about how you're 1 or 2 degrees of separation from people in Huntsville. And I know that you're one of those guests where Morgan beat Rob Hamilton to it by maybe 2 days, where she was like, oh, hey, I'm working for Flourish Consulting Services now. I really think you need to interview my new CEO. She's awesome. And then I think 2 days later, Rob, who I had also booked for the show, I see that you're connected with him through the UAH class. And I know that he would have mentioned the same thing. Right. So there's certain guests that I've had where I know that I would have probably had 3, 4, 5, 10 recommendations. You got to talk to Megan. You got to talk to Megan. So a big shout out to Morgan. She was our episode 3 guest.
Yeah.
And there's that tie-in to First Stop. When you saw Jessica Brown's name, her former company did a lot of work with First Stop, which basically kind of meet the homeless where they're at. Not a homeless shelter.
First Stop is amazing. Amazing.
So I'm excited to talk to her.
Yeah.
And she also represents the Committee of 100 as a young professional.
Awesome.
And so we've met with the CEO, of course, and John Allen, but now we're going to meet with one of the young professionals.
That's great. It's exciting.
So you asked me as you came in today, like how my day was. Our kids are on fall break. How was your day?
They are. Yeah, it was good. You know, right now we are just eyeball deep in strategy development for a new client that we brought on. So all I can think about is additive manufacturing and lattice materials and polymer science and stuff like that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So, but the day was great. It is fall break. We took our boys to Atlanta to go to the aquarium and do a couple of fun things there. Massive devastation unfolded though while we were there, and I left their Nintendo Switch in the hotel, and it got stolen by a maid or by whoever was cleaning it. It went missing, you know. So, so their worlds fell apart, legit. And I think I kind of manifested that a little bit because I can't stand the video games, and but they're recovered now. So yeah, it's been a great week. It's always I hate to say this, I know it sounds cliche, but I love what I do, and I love the people that I get to do it with, and we genuinely really enjoy spending time together.
Yeah.
So I go to work. I don't really call it work because we just go in and do awesome things with people that we really enjoy doing them for. So yeah, the week is great. Day is great. I'm glad Friday's here. I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Yep.
But yeah, everything's great. So.
Yeah. So I wasn't necessarily planning to go with this, but in listening to one of your, I listen to a lot of the SheBoss, but after a while they do kind of, if you listen to too many too fast, then it's like, I don't remember who she was talking to.
Yeah.
But the one thing that really stuck out was how you truly dive into that client and try to learn everything you can about that business, right? To kind of with that value add to help them in maybe ways they didn't even see coming, which I'm sure can be very uncomfortable at times, right? When you're kind of always out of your element, always out of your element, right? Where you're trying to dive into, I don't know anything about this industry, but hey, we've done it before. This is the template of success. Can you comment on that with kind of where that started? Kind of that when you share that with your employees, that might be different for them, depending on where they've worked before. Kind
of the concept behind SheBoss and how that came to be, or just the.
Well, no, I think it's just more as you get a new client coming in.
Yeah.
And if that's in, I guess as you just mentioned manufacturing.
How do we kind of get?
Yeah, where you're really diving into that space, into that customer set, that industry.
Yeah. So I think that what I have found over time is that process of engagement is really something that makes us unique, makes Flourish unique. So we're very specific about any time that we engage with a new client. If someone calls us up and they're like, hey, I need you to create a billboard ad. Want you to manage social media. I want you to do this. Those are not clients that we typically take on, only because we focus on the big picture and on the long-term growth goals. So, we really consider ourselves more of a strategic growth partner, not really a marketing agency, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
So anytime that we engage with a new client, we never talk about tactical marketing things that they may think they need, because oftentimes they'll go into that dialogue with a little bit of a narrow mind or a preconceived notion on like, okay, well, marketing, right. So you can do this or you can do that. They don't think bigger picture. So I think the way that we've really been able to provide great value to our clients on some of the engagements that we've had is through the process that we take when we initially start with them. And that is doing strategy development. As I was mentioning to you, I'm literally having dreams about additive manufacturing this week. It's really exciting. So, the first step of any engagement that our team goes through is what we call discovery and research. So we spend the first 4 to 6 weeks interviewing their stakeholders, whether they're employees, their customers, their vendors, suppliers, anybody that they do business with, to get this really good 360 glimpse on all things company. We also do a deep dive into the competitive landscape to really understand who they're up against based on the goals that they have for that long-term partnership with us. So if we know that they're going to be going after a big contract next year, and who potentially they could lose that business to. We want to understand who that company is. So we do a big dive on that. We get ourselves up to speed on the industry itself, which is why I'm now an expert in, not really, but I feel like I'm an expert, at least more so than I was last week on additive manufacturing. And we really get ourselves up to speed in that regard. And then we tear apart in the best possible way all of their existing collateral, messaging, social media, all of that. And the end result of that process is a very comprehensive marketing and communication strategy that we present and then manage and execute on their behalf. And that's the partnership. So it's very much like we become an employee almost overnight, where we get ourselves very up to speed on everything business. We're also very honest and candid about our recommendations. We don't ever tell someone something that we think they want to hear. And as you know, you garner a lot of respect doing that. I'm gonna spend their money the way that I would spend my own. And so we're very upfront about that. We're also very selective too about the clients that we work with. And so if we don't feel as though they kind of jive with our morals or lead with integrity the way that we do, we politely refer them to somebody else, because it legitimately becomes a true partnership. Some of our clients are some of my closest friends. They've become that over time, which is the best possible scenario. So I think that, we get very, very nested in that regard, and we build that trust, and we, our clients, know that we are part of their team, and vice versa. So it's so much fun in that regard, but it really allows us to just get completely on the same wavelength as their team. And so when we come to them with recommendations, they're like, yeah, you guys know what you're talking about, and it's not just shooting in the dark, hoping for, a success, but it's really being nested with what they're doing and understanding where they really want to go with their business.
So I got a couple follow-up questions. The first one is, maybe 3. How many companies that reach out to you understand that that's what you're going to provide to them?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little. And I think it's, one of the, and you and I talked about this previously, but one of my big goals, and the entire team at Flourish, our big goals is really to kind of flip the concept of marketing on its head a little bit, because so many companies that contact us are like, well, I worked with this company and spent all this money and didn't really see, they just didn't really see the added value there. And so when we walk them through that process, they're like, holy cow, I didn't even know, like, what? They're really taken aback by that.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to me, because I was really shocked that other companies didn't take that approach. I'm like, how can you ever recommend someone go spend $20,000 on something without doing your due diligence up front to ensure that you can recommend that with confidence and validity? But that's what we do. And so I think when we go through that process, a lot of businesses are really surprised. They're really surprised that we ask them questions that are not related whatsoever to marketing at all. Every time we sit down with a president or a CEO, we never even mention marketing. Like that, I try to keep that word out of the dialogue, if I'm being honest. And that's kind of mind-blowing, I think. And, a big surprise I think that often comes out of that is that we're able to indirectly influence other aspects of their business that don't necessarily fall within the marketing lane. And so we're doing a lot of things around recruitment and retention and internal culture and internal communications, and things of that nature that are really helping some of these businesses to be able to recruit top talent when they're competing against Blue Orbit, or whoever it might be. So I think that's been a surprise, because it's not like, oh, this is just a marketing company. It's they're my partner in crime, and they are here to, look beyond what I may be capable of doing on my own. And I can trust that they're going to give me recommendations that are going to be sound for my business.
Yeah, because I would imagine, my assumption is most people come to you, and I know that I've been guilty of this, and kind of blinders on, hey, where should we put billboard advertising? What do you think about our logo, or create a new logo? Help us with our website. and they kind of feel like those are just all the levers, right? Or the tools that you can control.
Right. And if we don't have at least some control over the other aspects, that's not a project that we take on. There's no way we can be able to strengthen a brand of a company if all we have control over is their website and social media, but we have no control over what they're saying in the public eye.
Sure.
Or being like, we can't control the success over here if you're going to be screwing stuff up over here.
Right.
So which is why we look at everything to say, okay, if we really want things to rise, we've got to be able to, insert effort in a couple different lanes to ensure that you can reach the goals that you want. So
here's another question. Are you at 10 employees now, or is it more than that?
I think we're at 10. 10? Yeah.
So of the 10 that have come on, how much training, or when you select these new employees, do some of them come from that mindset a little bit? They've
Honestly,
used those practices in the past, or this is really, hey, at Flourish, this is what we do. Kind of put them through the University 101 approach, marketing 101.
Yeah, it kind of is that, if I'm being honest, and for some of our employees who have had experience working in the marketing world, it was a shock to come in and see how we approach things. They were very, very surprised that we took that much in-depth effort up front to ensure that everything we did was the best that it could be.
Yeah.
And again, I think with businesses, you grow too fast, you scale too fast, you just get focused on the wrong things at the wrong time. And before you know it, you're not focused on why you really started the business to begin with. You and I talked about this, but I never went down the path of starting a business. It just sort of happened. And I think that's done a lot of benefit for the way that we view how we approach partnerships, because I don't lead with, I need to make money and be all, that's not my driver. And so I think when your drivers are a little bit different, how you approach things and how you actually do business is also very different. But yeah, a lot of our team, they come in and and a lot of our team is also very young.
Yeah.
We're like a feeder, UNA is like a feeder school for us. They're producing amazing talent, especially in the marketing and communications world. Shout out to their team out there. They're just doing amazing things. But so they come in and they've got the fundamentals of the education curriculum that they just, graduated from. And I love this because they're learning about public relations in school, and then they get into an agency and they're like, holy cow, I didn't know any of this, and it's real world versus, curriculum, which is very, very different. So, but I think it gets them excited. They love the fact that we do our due diligence all the way through to ensure everything that we do is done with the best possible intent. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer in that whole, like, what you do when people aren't looking kind of thing. That's really what matters, when it doesn't matter what other people think, but it's how you actually hold yourself in business. And so that is key for us. It's key. That is like the core of what we do, which has just been really exciting. So
yeah, you have to judge the aptitude, right? Yeah. That I have become a big believer that I don't always take the most stock in quote unquote experience. Because you could have had the wrong experience as you go from one job to the next.
But bad experiences are just as good.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. I've had a lot of bad experiences, which led me to this point, and I am so thankful for all of them.
Well, and, we haven't gone into it yet, but to compare and contrast the large companies you work for versus now have your own thing, you can't really afford to make a mistake on an employee as far as, do they have passion? Do they have desire? Do they want to learn? Do they have the aptitude to learn? Right? Yeah. Because this is your baby now.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to trust them with your baby.
And you don't have 1,000 employees where certain people can kind of hide in the weeds.
Yeah.
Right. You're kind of all co-located, and there's an accountability there.
For sure. And and I'm a big proponent of, you can have hard skills all day long, but if you don't have those soft skills of motivation and gumption and grit and respect and those things that I know I want to surround myself with those type of people. I can teach you anything, right? But if you don't carry those types of values either, it's just not going to be a good fit. So
I wasn't planning to go in this order, but I think you present a good segue. And it's not a segue, but I want to just go back to, you were laid off from a company here, and you talked about scale. They scaled too quickly, and you got laid off. And then that's when your 11-year-old daughter, Madison, I believe is her name, comes to you and says, hey, Mom, why don't you just start something on your own? I want to go, can you go back further in your relationship with your oldest daughter, Madison? And because it didn't just start, I'm sure that's not the first piece of advice she gave you.
No.
And Can you just talk to us a little bit about that relationship with her? Because you have been interviewed a lot, and I think that story's been, told and retold. But I really want to give you a chance to kind of go back even further and paint that picture and provide a little more context on how special your daughter is, and what kind of leads her to having that confidence to approach you and have that level of conversation.
Yeah. So I so appreciate the fact that you're asking that too, because I just really appreciate that. So, we moved here in 2005. I was living in Atlanta and moved here 2005. And within a period of 6 months, no joke, I quit my job. Got pregnant, got married, sold our house in Atlanta, moved to Huntsville. I've never even stepped foot in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
And I moved to Huntsville, bought a house, and started a new job like that, and had a baby. That all happened in 6 month period. So talk about like, holy cow, and it was none of it was planned. Like it just happened.
Did you ever have your blood pressure checked during that period of time?
No, I did not. No. But it was just insane. It was insane. And so, but you just react. You just have to. You don't have a choice. And especially as a new mom, there's no other option but to survive and just move forward. Right. So, Madison, I was very fortunate that when I moved to Huntsville, I was able to work for a small engineering company doing marketing for them, and I worked from home. So I was home with Madison until she was about a little less than 2 years old, and she was the most chill, relaxed baby on the planet. So we had our routine, and it was always her and I. It was the two of us, until my youngest son was born. And so her and I just bonded. We did everything together. And, after I got a job working from home, I went and worked for the Muscular Dystrophy Association and ran their North Alabama office. And she was there with me all the time. She came to all the fundraising events. She was there in the weekend helping me decorate the office, because my first job was to pick out the paint and carpet and then hire the staff and all of that.
Wow.
I was so underqualified for this job, but I sold myself and I nailed it. And it was amazing. And this is a little, if you're not fully qualified, you don't check all the boxes, still apply. Please still apply, because you're still an amazing person. And, all those qualities are sometimes not what is a good fit for a position. So Madison was, her and I were just so close. And I think a lot of maybe new moms say this, but like she was my best friend, and she's this 3-year-old, and she was just such a great kid. And so it was always her and I. And I think we just really built this great relationship where, she's always been very mature for her age. She's extremely smart. She's very intuitive. But as she got older, unfortunately, she was kind of forced to grow up very, very quickly, at no fault of her own because of personal things that were going on in our life. So it's always sort of been like her and I against the world type of thing. I accidentally grabbed her glass instead of mine. And so you can see it's like, she's got this, empowered all over her water bottle. And that definitely explains who she is.
Well, and she also loves your roots from New York.
I know. She went up there over the summer to spend time with my best friend, and that's where she wants to live.
Okay.
She wants to go to John Jay. So, we've always had this really great relationship. And, I think it was such a beautiful thing for her to be, no joke, the reason we are having this conversation today. And she's the reason why we have Flourish. And she's the reason why I was able to shake myself out of a really difficult time and put my big girl pants on and do what I needed to do. And what drove that in her, I don't know. But I think that, her and I just have such a close relationship that I'm so thankful for. And she's just always been my cheerleader, always, and vice versa, So that's kind of the backstory with her. She's amazing.
Was she named after living here in Madison, Alabama?
No, we chose the name before we knew we were moving to Madison.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I always loved that name. And so, we chose that early
and
on.
Then, do you remember an age where she asked you kind of her first inquisitive question where you were like, wow, that's well beyond her years?
Oh my gosh, all the time. I mean, she's just so, again, she's just so smart. I can't think specifically of something. There's so many funny stories with her when she was younger. I'll never forget the time, she's 17 now. So I think I got an iPad like when iPads came out, and so I had an iPad. And
I know where this is going.
Right. Well, she was this. I didn't know that you needed to put parental controls on things because I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I'll never forget. She comes down one time and she's, and this is Madison, so honest. worst liar on the planet, which I'm so thankful for. So she could never get away with that. Not that she did often anyway, but she comes downstairs and she had my iPad, and she's like, she's just like hysterical crying. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? She's like, I was looking online, and, and she wanted to play the song by Katy Perry, Sex on the Beach.
Okay.
So she's like 6, so her and her best friend Emma, they just Google sex on the beach.
Oh,
and
no.
she's like, and I saw these pictures and they're people in their bathing suits. And then and I'm like desperately trying to hold it back, not like die laughing. I'm like, what did you do? And she's like, and I know that you said whatever you do on the internet, it stays there forever. And you can, and I'm like, yes, it does. But it was the funniest moment because she was so devastated that she had got in trouble and that I would find out, and God forbid the internet call me, right? And let me know that she Googled this. But it just cracks me up. But yeah, she's a fun kid.
And then when did your next one come? You have 3 kids. When did your middle child come along?
So my middle son is my stepson.
Okay.
So we have a blended family.
Okay.
I got married in 2019, remarried. So he is 13. Mo is amazing. So smart. And he's way taller than I am. It's insane. It's like a size 13 shoe. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I know, it's crazy. And then my youngest son, Jack, is 9.
Okay.
So he's in 4th grade, and he is just all boy, just insane.
And that's with your husband.
Oh, so my 9-year-old is with my ex-husband.
Right.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids with my ex-husband, and then we blended families, and and then I inherited a wonderful stepson.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
My story is even sometimes even more complicated when I get into half sisters and half brothers and stepsisters and step brothers. I'm like, wait a minute, I think I got this straight. But actually, you said you come from a big family on both sides, and you started up in New York, but you moved to Clearwater when you were like 6 months old. Talk to me about your siblings. I got to admit, I think I had your maiden name, but I found nothing. I tried to find, it's usually just high school yearbooks or, the occasional article in the paper, and I didn't really find much, which is fine.
I'll take it. I'm okay
that's
with that.
actually a good thing. It means you're old enough. That not everything was digitized.
I'm like my teenage years and early years were not captured on social media. Thank God.
But I in listening to the episode in SheBoss you did with Maya White or
Maya
Whitty.
Wynn.
Yeah, I like her music, by the way.
She's amazing. She won the Music from the Moon competition that we did a couple years ago. She's amazing.
And she just made a comment how she was very different than the rest of her family. You
Yeah.
know, she's kind of the artist, and the rest of them are engineers and stuff. But like, can you talk to me about your siblings? But then my ultimate question is, do you pattern after your siblings, parents, as far as kind of what you're doing now?
Wow, that's a good question. So the answer would be no. I don't. I don't have any entrepreneurs in my family or anybody who's worked in this field. I'm the youngest of 4, so I have 2 sisters and a brother. And my oldest sister and my oldest brother are my half sister and brother, Cindy and Mike. And then my sister, my blood sister, is Chrissy, and she is 2.5 years older than I am. So her and I grew up, and we were 2 peas in a pod. We look identical with the exception of she has blonde hair, blue eyes, and I have dark hair and green eyes, which really helped when I needed a fake ID in college. It really helped, which I stumbled across the other day, which was pretty funny. So, so she, my sisters, and I mean, they're awesome. My family's amazing. Like I mentioned to you, they're big Irish Catholic on both sides. And, my dad's got 5 brothers and a million, nieces and nephews and cousins all over the place. And then my mom's got 5 on her side. But they met in Brooklyn, and my dad's from Washington Heights, mom from Long Island.
Okay.
And a lot of them are still up there, but moved down when we were younger. But, I don't think, my mom has always been, she was a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years, early on, but my mom has always been a hustler. Always. I mean, she was she was a single mom for a really long time and had her fair share of just crap thrown her way throughout her life. But she's always overcome and superseded that regardless of the situation, which was always very inspirational to me. But I didn't recognize the significance of that until I became a mom myself.
Sure.
When I had Madison, I'll never forget the moment my mom was up and Maddie was in the back and in diapers. And I finally look at my mom and I'm like, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, I understand why I thought you were crazy when I was younger. Like, you weren't crazy. You were just being a mom. And at that moment for her, I think, she'll never forget, because she's like, finally, I was the problem child. I was a little bit of a handle for her when I was growing up. And I think I was just trying to find my way, honestly.
Yeah. And you said you were the youngest.
I was the youngest.
So you're going to get away with more.
Right. I did. Yeah. And you, as the youngest, I think you don't purposefully get less attention, but it's just, you know what I mean? You're like, you got it,
Were you spoiled more? Did your siblings accuse you of being spoiled because you were the youngest?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I was definitely the favorite. No. That's just what I'm telling myself. No. But and then my dad was, he worked on Wall Street, and he was a stockbroker for a long time, and really successful in his earlier years. And then when we moved down to Florida, he kind of got into the real estate market a little bit, and he my dad, hands down, without a doubt, is my biggest cheerleader. Always, he was always there pushing me and challenging me. And, he's one of these guys that, that anytime anything good in my life would happen, he would be the first person that I would call, always. He passed away last year, which was devastating. It really, really, it was just awful. It's one of those things where, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do if my dad were to ever not be here, and then he wasn't. And it all unfolded during COVID, where he got really sick and he dealt with cancer for months and had to move in with my sister and all this kind of stuff. It was awful. But I think he always, again, was the one to just push me and challenge me and just say, well, this is great, but what about this, as opposed to just giving me kudos every time just for the sake of the conversation, which I really appreciated. I do that with Madison and the boys now too, where, I'm challenging her. She brought a paper to me last night, 'cause she's at Calhoun right now. And it's like, okay, well, I could sit here and just like rewrite your paper and fix it and give it back to you, or I could sit here and talk to you and give you perspective. And I, gave her this podcast. I'm like, you need to go listen to this podcast about mental health crisis.
Yeah.
That was done by the Daily, because her report that she was doing was on the usage of cell phones with teenagers and her opinion on it. And I'm like, you need to broaden your perspective a little bit. And that is making her a better person. It's making her think about things in a different way. It's making it a little bit more challenging up front, but it's going to yield such a great return in the long run. And my dad was the same way with me, which I think really helped me become who I am today.
Kind of teach them how to fish.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we were just down in, you're a Florida girl. And we were just down in Alabama, we are in Alabama. We were down in Orange Beach. When I'd say like that, you can go either side, right? And spent some time at Floribama, which was awesome. It seems like it started out as a bar, and they've added on 6 or 7 times to it, but it has just so much charm and character. And so we went onto the Florida side, and we're still kind of doing reconnaissance, right? Still being new to the Gulf region or this Panhandle area, and where to go on vacation and stuff. But I just find it always amazing how now you're on the podcast. You're from Florida. We're in Alabama now, and you're from Clearwater. So I have let me pull this up. This is a map of, if you want, you might see it better there. It's up to you. But I think you went to Countryside High School, right?
I did. Go Cougars. Other side. Yeah, there you go.
I just have to zoom in the right way here. But can you talk to me what it's like to live in Clearwater? I mean, did you do anything but to be around the water, live at the beach?
I lived at the beach. I definitely lived at the beach. Yeah. I got married on the beach, lived at the beach. Before I could drive, my girlfriends and I would, walk up to the mall and take the bus downtown that would connect.
So is that this mall, Countryside Mall?
Yeah.
That's your mall?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we would jump on the bus and go out to the beach.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was great. I loved it. Clearwater was a lot of fun. I was very, very fortunate in that the same group of kids that I went to kindergarten with, I graduated high school with, which was really cool. So I had the love of my life, at least I thought at the time, was my kindergarten boyfriend, and he was my boyfriend, in my senior year in high school, which was crazy.
So from kindergarten all the way to your senior year?
We didn't last the whole way, but my mom would joke, because I'd come home in kindergarten with I love Jonathan, on my hand. And then that was the guy that I was dating when I was in, college and high school and everything. Not anymore, obviously, but yeah. So it was really nice to grow up with the same group of individuals. You don't get a chance to do that often. But it was a beautiful area. I loved it. So which, did you hit, did you come all the way out to this part here? I don't know what you call this stretch of land, or did you do the beach on this side? Oh no, you go across. You take the bridge over. Mm-hmm.
And that aquarium was always there? that Clearwater.
So that is where the Clearwater Marine Aquarium is where the dolphin that doesn't have the fin. Winter the dolphin.
Winter.
That's where, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but that's like, it like made Clearwater famous.
I think I did.
I mean, she was rescued, and then her tail, they had to give her a prosthetic tail.
Oh, wow.
And they gave her a prosthetic tail, and they housed her at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, and that place blew up. They had a book, they made a movie with it, about it, and unfortunately, Winter's no longer with us today. But it's a great little town. Unfortunately, like most places, it's been taken over by huge condos and malls and all that kind of stuff. So the beach is not what it once was, when I was younger. But Clearwater Beach is beautiful. It always ranks like in the top 10 beaches, because of the sand and the water. I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's
So
beautiful.
I'm going to turn to my wife. We were down in Florida, in Orlando, I think 2018, and we were supposed to go to Clearwater that day. We did some stuff. I don't even know if we did. Did we do Disney or SeaWorld? We were there. I was only there for like 2 or 3 days, but we were on our way to Clearwater with some friends, and the girl got sick, or right. We were kind of caravanning, carpooling there, and we were on. I guess we were on. I don't remember what road we were on, but I made it to an exit where we got off and checked in on her, and we had to go back. And I guess we just didn't go to Clearwater that day. And then I flew home because I had to go back to work, and they actually ended up going on their own. So I never got to go.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to go, and I was so excited because to me, there's just always been something magical about Clearwater. And I've heard it, like the Wheel of Fortune used to always give out vacations there or something back in the day, and it's just kind of like, oh man, you got to go to Clearwater. They did a really good job marketing it, I
I
think.
love the Wheel of Fortune. I actually applied to be on that show.
Did you?
I did.
What happened?
Madison was there with me because you had to shoot a video to say, hey, my name's Megan, and I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, and I would love to be on the Wheel of Fortune. And Madison was there with me. We did the video because we used to watch Wheel of Fortune all the time. I love Wheel of Fortune.
And they never gave you the time of day?
No, they didn't. But
How long ago was that?
That was probably 10 years ago. But
I guess.
and my sister and I used to play the Wheel of Fortune game when we were little. Like we had it as a board game.
Sure.
We played all the time. I love Wheel of Fortune. I could watch it day in and day out.
I guess they've come out, they're in their 40th year, and they just came out with an upgraded board.
Oh.
So Vanna was having to like touch the touch the corner, and then the light or the letter would show.
Yeah.
Now I guess it's just kind of a hover. And it still
Fancy.
argues like you probably don't need her, but
Right.
it works.
Oh,
It's
but you
been
need
working
her.
for 40
You
years.
cannot have Wheel of Fortune without Vanna White. It's not going to be the same.
No.
It's just not.
I've always wondered how many steps she gets in, right? And like, a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. So now, are you taking advantage of Breeze Airways from Huntsville to Tampa? It's one of their routes.
It is. I wish it was a route that we had in 2020 because I was down
Yeah.
in Florida all the time and they didn't have it then, which stunk. So yes, we do take advantage of it. My family takes advantage of it. My mom will use it and come up. And so definitely, yeah, I'm so glad that we have that.
So your mom's still on her own?
She's down in, she's in North Tampa.
Okay.
With my stepdad. They actually just got back today from Europe. They did a month-long European
Wow.
vacation. I know. So she's like, finally back in Atlanta. So they'll be home. But yeah, so I've got a lot of family that still lives in that area.
Well, next year's our 25th anniversary, and I think Europe is where we're going.
Where are you going to go?
We don't know yet.
No. I'm taking Madison there too. We're
Really?
going, but we haven't quite figured out exactly where. I know we want to do Italy and Switzerland. I know that for sure. I can't get away from the Switzerland videos on TikTok of just how gorgeous they are. I'm like, it's just telling me I have to go.
Well, and the fact that they went for a month, that probably still wasn't enough time.
Oh shit! Well, they went
Right.
and they went all over the place. I mean, they
Yeah.
had so much fun, and everything was planned, and they just had reservations. I mean, it was booked. You
Yeah.
know, and when she first got there, she's like, the Queen was when the Queen died, and she's like, it's just ruined a whole week of. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, because they had
Yeah.
so many plans when they
Yeah.
were there. But she was ready to come home. She was
Yeah.
definitely ready to come home.
My sister just got back from London, and the same thing happened to them. I mean, what luck, right? She's never been to London.
Right.
She finally gets around to booking a trip. Her and her husband go, and the Queen dies, and like all of a sudden,
Everything's shut
everything's
down.
shut
Can't get
down, or
anywhere.
there's like 10 times the number
Yeah.
of people that normally would be there.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. It was. I could only imagine what it was like over there, but
Yeah.
it's still worth going.
So then you go to University of Central Florida.
Go Knights.
And because it's in the Orlando area, then hospitality management. Now you went in as a journalism major.
I did. Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about I don't know. Was that something that started in high school? Were you on the yearbook staff? Were you on the newsletter?
Yep. Did all the things. I ran the newsletter or ran the yearbook. Not ran. I mean, I was part of the newspaper and the yearbook and loved it. I really enjoyed the creative writing of things. When I was younger, that was a great outlet for me. I used to journal a lot. I still have all my journals. I've shared them with Madison to encourage her to journal, and also to show a vulnerable side of like, hey, teenage years are not easy. You're going to struggle through stuff. So, I wrote a lot, and as you know, I love music. So, I wanted to be the editor of Rolling Stone magazine. So I'm like, if I can, that's what I want to do. I want to go do that. So I got into the journalism program, at UCF when I started.
Was there a particular writer on that staff that you liked, or just in general, it was more of the music?
It was the music. It was the vibe. It was the being part of that culture. I just loved so much. I mean, when I was in high school, I loved music. I loved going to shows. I loved punk, so I went to punk shows all the time and, messed up my knee in a mosh pit. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. And so I wanted to really get into that space. And I got into the journalism program and started it. I'll never forget my first assignment was to write my own obituary.
Oh, wow.
I know. That's weird.
How many words?
I can't remember, but that was weird. It was weird. And I honestly think that writing your own obituary should be a regular practice. Like you should do it every couple of years, honestly.
Yeah.
I know it sounds kind of weird, but it really puts things into perspective when you think about what's important,
Was it an obituary at that point in time, or did you have to pretend that you lived this life?
We had to pretend that we lived this life. Okay. And this was like, hey, you're 85 years old. You've lived a good life, but what does that look like for you? And that was crazy for me. But then, getting into sort of like the journalism 101 courses and the AP style and everything was so structured.
Yeah.
I hated it. And for me, creative writing, I was showing my cards. It was a very vulnerable activity to write poetry or to write, just creative write and then have people criticize it. And I'm working on it. Irish Catholic, I'm extremely stubborn, very hard-headed. And so, when my professors, would critique my writing, I'm like, I can't do this. Nope, I'm out. So I dropped out of the program. And I changed my major like 4 separate times when I was there at school, because I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And being in Orlando, that was, I've always worked. Since the day I turned 14, I started working, and I have not stopped since. And I worked in restaurants and food and beverage, and I was a bartender. Like, you name it, I've done it. Worked at Haagen-Dazs, so much fun. Wouldn't recommend it if you don't want to gain a couple pounds. But
now, was that something your parents said, listen, all the kids start working at 14?
No. I just wanted the independence, and I wanted to be financially independent, and I wanted to keep busy, and I just loved the concept of working and get it, So so I got out of the journalism program, and being in Orlando, waiting tables at really nice restaurants there on International Drive, I just kind of clung to the hospitality side of things. I really enjoyed it. And I had a boss at a restaurant that I worked at who I just admired beyond belief. His name is Patrick, and he was just the epitome of guest services, but not like in that cheesy cliche way that you see, in movies and stuff. But he was just very, very professional, and I really admired him. And at the time, UCF was building. It was on a blueprint. They were building the Rosen School of Hospitality Management, which is now like the second largest in the country. But at the time, it was just a blueprint, literally. So the program at UCF was getting started, and I think our class was maybe the first or second class that ever took part in it, and it was amazing. I loved it, and I had and I could relate because I've been doing these things for so long, and I would take classes on. I had a class on a mixology class and how to make cocktails and stuff like that, and how to cook and how to be in a kitchen, and I loved it. When I got through that program, I really thought that I wanted to get into event management and do event planning. So my goal was I wanted to work for a big company, maybe like NFL, and do event corporate planning. That was back then when corporate corporate event planning was a really big deal then. And my mom was an event planner, so I kind of got that in my blood a little bit. And so I applied for jobs with like the NFL and Starbucks and all these big corporations, and ended up getting a job with Marriott in Atlanta, and then worked in it for a little bit. And I just didn't really love it, if I'm being honest. I just didn't. And then when we moved here and I started working for this engineering company, I felt I was in a sales role, but it was a marketing role, and I just didn't know it. And I've never taken a marketing class in my life, but in that position, I found something that like really ignited me in a way that I just hadn't really found before.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the path that I continued to follow, and the rest is history.
Sorry, let's go back to high school with the newsletter, the yearbook. Like, do you remember a time where you were given some latitude, and you're on the staff or whatever, where you got to kind of put your own stamp on something or a creative element on something, or say, why don't we do it different? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and I kind of getting at where you may not have realized maybe some of that entrepreneurial spirit in you that later manifests itself where, man, if I'm unleashed, I can do a lot of different things because I just have these creative juices flowing. But can you talk me through any particular experience?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why I probably loved working for the newspaper and the yearbook for so long, because you had that creative freedom. You'd have the teacher to say, okay, well, you guys are in charge. This is your product.
Okay.
It's not mine. It's yours. So you're the creative department. You come up with the ideas. You come up with the story angles. You do the interviewing. You do this. And so being able to, which I later in life discovered, just a couple of years ago, that I fell in love with, was that process of ideation and then, physically it coming to fruition, right? And you having a hand in every single part of it.
Yeah.
I love that so much, especially with newspaper, because, every other week you could see something new that you created, and it was just a thought, and then it became a thing, and then you would get feedback, and it would influence people's decisions or influence their opinions on something. I feel like if this is going to be the second time that I'm talking about it, I really don't want to get a reputation that this is anything who I am, but I did a full page spread in our newspaper about fake IDs, and when I was in high school, because it was a big deal back then, and a lot of people were doing it.
Including you.
Including me. Yeah, I was really good at it, though. So, you can't do that now.
Yeah. We have to appreciate the forgery, like how good you were.
I mean, I know. Like, it was, it was a talent. Yeah. But, doing a story on that and really gaining different perspective from students and from teachers and even from local law enforcement. And we interviewed our SROs in the school. And that was just, it was that topic, that type of article never would have come out from a teacher had they sort of controlled what the creative aspect looked like of it. Right. And that was awesome, because then students were reading it, and not to say like we were giving tips, but it was something that they absolutely could relate to.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just love that.
So, but what would have happened? Because you said you were stubborn. So you go to UCF, and they're like, "Hey, we don't like your writing." And you're like, "Well, screw you. I'm out. I'm going to go do something else." What if they had imposed parameters or limited your abilities and freedom in high school? Do you think you would have bailed?
Probably.
And who knows what
I know
the future would hold, right? And what that obituary would look like.
I know. It took me a long time to really figure out like my shtick. You know what I'm saying? It really did. I don't know how. Well, and it's different now, but I always wonder how kids who go off to college now are supposed to pick a major before they even start. I mean, and again, I worked forever. Granted, I worked in industries that maybe wasn't going to be indicative of my future career, but getting experience and getting exposure and getting perspective is something that is not an easy thing to do. At the time when I was in high school, my mom was a single mom. My sister had gone off to college already, and so it was just her and I. She didn't bring me into the office, and you know what I'm saying? She didn't have the opportunity to do that. And I think that's why, with my kids, especially with Madison, I mean, she's been involved with my career from day one. And she's always gotten visibility into certain things. I shared this with you earlier, but she's the reason why we started the business. My boys are office manager 1 and 2 for Flourish. They have their own name tags, and they're heavily involved in things that we do. And granted, they're very young, but it just gives them this perspective on things that they don't get a chance to see. And I didn't really get that, I think, when I was super young. I had great parents, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't get that kind of exposure. So, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a creative. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to live life and do my thing. And it wasn't really until I got a little bit older that I realized that, really what were some of the things that really drove me. Now, I will say I'm very competitive. So when I was in college and I finally decided on what I wanted to do, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be number one. I wanted to be the one who got the best job out of college. I wanted to be the one who was president of all the chapters that start, like I did a lot of things that, I don't know how I had the time to do them, but I just did. And that for me, I think really kept me at a level where I felt the most happy. I needed to feel busy. I needed to feel fulfilled in a variety of different ways. And, I discovered that and I just sort of fell in love with it and really haven't stopped since. So
did you do any volunteering? I know volunteering has been a huge piece of coming to Huntsville, and you've talked about that before. You were in the muscular dystrophy. I think you were in a project called Pro Bono at some point that you were part of.
Yeah, we do. So we have the Ivy Initiative at Flourish where we do a ton of pro bono work, a lot of it. We work with a lot of nonprofits here locally and give away a lot of our time. If I could do nothing but that, that's all I would do. Working in nonprofit and getting that exposure when especially it was a nonprofit that was helping kids, and families, which my daughter was a part of, so she would be playing with these kids who had muscular dystrophy and they'd be in a wheelchair and she wouldn't, and she'd ask questions and she'd, and so, that's a big deal to me for sure. I do think that, a lot of the exposure that I've gotten around the nonprofit world has definitely been in Huntsville for sure. I didn't really get a lot of that, or nor did I have an opportunity to get exposure to that while I was in Atlanta or even Orlando for that matter. But it's been a really big focal point for who I am today and some of the things that we do at Flourish.
Yeah. So now you worked at big companies. Some had a tremendous reputation, positive reputation, right? That wasn't necessarily your thing after a while, right? You kind of feel like a number. But is there something that you can kind of taking away from I'm not really going to focus on any one particular job, but when in your time in industry, right? Or for working for big corporations, what were some of those things that you take away as positives that you maybe find yourself still implementing in the way you go about doing business or the way you go about training and teaching your employees? But walk me through a little bit of the when you still hold on to the optimism or the positivity of that was all worthwhile because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I think I was fortunate to have really great opportunities that I was able to be part of, honestly. And I had a combination of good and I had a combination of bad. And again, as I said earlier, I'm so thankful for both because, having a boss who's not a great boss, even though in the time you're just like, looking back, that taught me how to be a much better leader in the role that I'm in now because I can sympathize, But I think, some of the things that I really learned that I took with me, I think was just a matter of respect, understanding, that your coworkers, those that you work with are so critical to the success of whatever project that you're working on, recognizing that you're not always right, learning when to check your ego and realize what you're good at versus what you're not good at. Working in nonprofit early on was such an amazing experience because, as a parent, you think sometimes you may complain about like, oh God, I wish I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then you put yourself in a situation where you're seeing, a mom come in with her, 8-month-old child who, that child's not going to live beyond probably two and a half. And you're doing everything that you can possibly do to help that parent just cope and just deal with what they're dealing with at that time. Talk about being appreciative for the things that you've got, right? So, I think that aspect really, really opened my eyes to the appreciation side of things. With the nonprofit, it also opened my eyes to going back to what you were talking about when I was in high school, that creative flexibility. I stepped into this role where I was all of a sudden doing all of these things for the very first time. As I said, I was very underqualified for this position, but I was determined to succeed regardless of how much time it took and effort it took, and I did. And it was so hard, but it was so well worth it. But seeing, being able to focus on all of these different things and learn so much just was something that I think was just amazing. And I think with anybody who thinks that they've made it and they've stopped learning and they've kind of reached that peak, like shame on you, know? And I think I was at that point at some point, where I was like, oh, I've made it up, no, like give me a break, like I had to physically start over, at the age of 35, which is not an easy thing to do for a lot of people.
Sure.
But I'm so thankful that I did because it just taught me so many things that now I'm like, I can't wait for the next 10 years, 15 years, because there's just been so many amazing amazing things that have unfolded, given those circumstances. So,
I never thought that this phrase would kind of be scrutinized or come under fire, but I've always seemingly been a big believer in fake it till you make it, right? And pull yourself up from your bootstraps and stuff like that. You yourself just admitted, right? You own a marketing company and you've never taken a marketing class. I have never gone to broadcasting school.
And look at this place.
Well, right. And so sometimes every now and then in life, something kind of makes sense and you just figure it out or it's intuitive. But I believe there was a fake it till you make it. I've talked about this in a couple episodes, but when I wanted to do my own sports network for a high school, I had to convince the principal, the coach, and the athletic director that I knew what I was doing. And then this would be worthwhile for them to allow me to do it, right? And to convince that viewer that I wasn't just going to use them as a guinea pig, that I felt like I want to do something and come across as, hey, I wonder where this guy studied. I didn't study anywhere.
The best kind.
Yeah, but I don't know why that's so hotly, I've seen it debated or I've come under scrutiny lately, but I don't know what's the negative about that.
I don't think there is one. No.
Sometimes you have to show, it's basically, to me, it's just showing confidence in yourself and your abilities. And maybe we don't all have that experience that someone's looking for. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier where, sometimes you don't have that specific experience, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Have you, so it sounds like you've never heard that come under scrutiny.
Well, I haven't, and I'm surprised to hear you say that, to be honest with you. I mean, and that's been my mantra, not to say that I've faked things my entire career, but you better believe that when I started this business, I had no clue what I was doing.
Sure.
No clue. But I just needed to roll with it, and I needed to be confident in myself and know that I may not know today what I need to do today, but I'm going to figure it out, and that's going to make me a stronger, better person.
Okay.
And I think that realization for me personally was a game changer, because, I did early in my career, I worked in nonprofit and then worked for a big agency after that, and was really focused on sort of that corporate ladder, like what's next, want to make money, want to do this, want to do that. And I don't know, I think I took advantage of the fact that you work for a big company and the resources are just there.
Yeah.
They're just, you kind of have a playbook, and you've got, you're filling the seat of someone who was there prior to you. And so you kind of pick up where they left off, and you've got a little bit of a playbook that you can move forward on. With Flourish, there wasn't a single playbook to follow. I had no clue what we were doing, nor did I know where we were going to go and whether or not we were going to be in business for even 6 months. I had no clue. But I think that aspect really forced me to come out of my shell in a way that I never would have had I not gone through that. So, is it a fake it till you make it? Sure.
Yeah.
I think we're all faking it. I think you have to determine what make it actually means, though. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever make it, because that definition is going to constantly change.
It's like fake it till you become operational.
Right. I guess so. But then even then, it's like, well, then there's bigger, better things that you want to do, because you say, wow, I can do this podcast without this experience. And what else can I do?
Right.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah. I mean, in your world, you need to fake it in order to have that first person be willing to sign up with you.
Yeah. But you know what, though? I'm honest about that. Like my first client, I was like, listen, this is where I'm at.
Sure.
This is what I can do. If there's things that I don't know how to do, I'm going to be honest about that, and I'm going to figure it out. And I think that honesty goes a long way, because then you've got that trust established with that particular person. If I went into that first client and I was like, oh, I've got years of experience doing all of these things, and and granted, I had a lot of experience, don't get me wrong, but doing what I did with Flourish was very, very different from what I had done in my previous jobs. So there has been, and there will continue to be, daily firsts,
Sure.
right? Always.
Well, there's the client, but then there's also that employee.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to judge things maybe even with more scrutiny. I have all these other options. I'm considered about leaving whatever position they're at, or they're leaving school, and they have all these potential companies they could join. Why would I join Megan as employee 2 or 3? How long has she been in business?
Yeah.
Right. That does come down to faking it a little bit to say, hey, trust me.
Yeah.
We got this. We got this one customer. We got this one client. Here's my vision.
That's risky. That's
right?
really risky. I mean, my first hire, I said that. I was like, listen, I don't know where we're going to be. but all I can do is just show my cards and be honest with you. And, Logan, she's amazing. She believed in that, and she saw the vision.
Yeah.
But also too, I wanted her, and I welcomed her, and I expected her to help shape that vision too, because I didn't have it all figured out. I had a logo. I had an 11-year-old cheering me on in my ear.
Yeah.
And I had, I had the determination of, I cannot let my kids see me fail, because they are looking at me like, you got this. That was my driver. But I think even now with Morgan, being our most recent hire, I mean, when we sat down and we interviewed her for the first time, and this is the way with everybody else, I want our team to help shape the direction of where our company is going.
Yeah.
This is not the Megan show. This is the Flourish show. And, we're only as good as our employees make it, so they have a vested interest in the success of that, which I think is really exciting for them.
Yeah.
At least I hope it is.
So let's step back a little bit and provide a little more context. Like earlier in the episode, we talked about your daughter before the age of 11. Now we're at the point where she's 11. She's coming to you and saying, hey, Mom, meanwhile, you're dealing with the divorce and being laid off and trying to figure out what you're going to do. And she says, hey, why don't you just do your own thing? Mm-hmm. And I think you've mentioned where you have to go on LegalZoom or something like that. And it's kind of
Googling how to start a business.
It's kind of step by step.
Yeah.
Now let me in the context, I don't know why I've thought about this as a parallel, but just to try to paint a contextual picture around it. There's this guy named Colin O'Brady. I mentioned him on the episode with John Allen, where he set the record he walked across Antarctica. It's like 1,300 miles in the fastest amount of time. He had never, and before that, no experience with anything like that. Then he decides he's going to summit the highest 7 peaks in the world in the fastest time, right? But he, at one point in a podcast, he's talking about how with his wife, they knew nothing about climbing. They knew nothing about the journey ahead other than let's just start with step 1. Mm-hmm. Let's make a website. And then once we've done that, then we should probably raise some money. And they just kind of like, with a project schedule, figured out all the tasks they would need to do that ultimately culminates in climb all 7 peaks in the fastest amount of time over a 2-year period. Can you go back and kind of systematically walk through, was that kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to talk to some people and get some advice, and then I'm going to do this?
Yeah.
Blind faith, it's going to work out, but can you kind of just talk through that, the steps you took?
Yeah. So, after I was laid off of my job, I had a former colleague that I worked with at the Army. I worked with her for a long time, and she came to me and said, hey, listen, I've got this business idea, but I don't know how to get it off the ground, and I could really use some help with that. And so she, she kind of had the vision, but didn't have the technical aptitude to be able to really pull it together. And so I was like, well, I just got laid off my job. I got a little bit of a severance. I've got some time on my hands. I'll jump in and see if I can help. And I was really fascinated with the business concept at the time. I was a resource for people who have gone through a divorce. And so she had just gone through a divorce. I'd gone through a divorce. And so that was a great way for me to sort of just creatively pour myself into something that was therapeutic in a way, kind of like running, And so I started creating this business, building a website. I've never built a website in my life. And here I am, I'm building this website. I'm hiring writers. I'm doing all this content. And
did you do it in Squarespace?
we did it in Wix.
Wix. Okay.
And so again, all of these things for the first time, we were going down this path. I've never gone down this path before. And we were trying to get investment raised. And so we were learning the world of, how to raise capital for a startup business and what does that look like? And that process to me was so exciting. And as I went through this process and I didn't know what I didn't know, I was leaning into our community resources to figure out, how do I actually go about doing this thing, right? There's a million things to do, but I didn't know really where to start. And so Googling, I found the Catalyst Center for Business and Entrepreneurship here.
Okay.
And we used to be the Women's Business Center. And the Catalyst, they do, that's what they are here for, is to support entrepreneurship. I mean, they are amazing. And so I called him up and I said, how do I get involved? I need to learn how to do this thing because I have no clue. And I enrolled in their Engage program. And now I think it's structured a little bit differently right now. But in essence, it's like once a month, I think, and you come in, you bring your lunch and you listen to a topic on how to create a business plan or how to do accounting for business 101, how to, what should your legal status be as a business? And it's all these things for the first time. I'm like, oh my God, I had no clue about any of this stuff, And so going, leaning on community resources like that for me was huge because I'm like, I don't have to do it by myself and I don't have to figure it out by myself. So flash forward to Flourish, I did that startup business for about 6 months and then decided to step away and do Flourish full time. And so when we started, I had a little bit of insight into some resources that we could lean on. But really, it's funny that you say that the guy launched the website. That was step number one. We launched the website and I built the website, in Wix at the time. And Madison helped me build the website and she helped me come up with the name and the logo. I got the logo on Taylor Brands for like $12.95, and it's still the logo we use today. I love it. Even though if you definitely need branding, you come to Flourish.
Did they choose the RGB, like the color?
They do. Okay. Well, I mean, I chose it.
You chose it.
Yeah. But I really, we thought about the concept of really what we wanted the business to be. And so that look and feel really fit with that. So it was like, okay, let's start there. Let's just start with an identity, right? And then the second part was, okay, let's start with a public identity as far as the website. And when I hit publish on the website, I swear I thought like the whole world was going to collapse. I was like, if we're legit now, we've got, we're live. Nothing happened. Just, spoiler alert, nothing happened. But so it was just like one step after another. Right. And so, and then, I had a lot of friends who were just reaching out to me saying, hey, I would really love your help with this thing, which, was marketing. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this stuff for free anymore. So, I had my very first client come to me and say, hey, I've got a startup. I really need help with such and such. And, would you want to help me out? And I was like, I'm going to help you out. Will you help me out? Because you're an entrepreneur. Okay. And so you're a couple steps ahead of me, right? So you can kind of not mentor me really, but I can ask you the dumb questions and you're going to be okay with that because you're getting cheap labor right now. Right, yeah. And so Lee Todd is who that was with, and he had a startup back in the day and great guy. And he just allowed me to pick his brain a little bit, and again, ask those dumb questions. At the time, this was in 2018, Urban Engine was a big deal back then. They kind of took a little bit of a hiatus with COVID, but they're coming back and they've got programming going on and everything. But that was a great outlet to be around other people who were also doing similar things. And I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, like you find your niche, right? And you're surrounded by peers who are going through the same struggles and challenges that you are. And I definitely, realized early on, like I said earlier, is that I absolutely had to check my ego at the door and realize what I wasn't good at and what I was good at. And everything that I was not good at, was in this column. And I just like put a dash and figured out how to source, for those things. And when I did that, I came to the realization, crazy concept, that you don't have to do everything on your own. Yeah. And I think early on, especially as a woman, especially as a newly divorced woman, I felt as though I needed to, because if I didn't, I was weak. That was, and I realized very quickly that I wasn't weak. In fact, I was very, very strong for taking the step that I did. But I had to go through some things for me to figure that out, Yeah. But yeah, it was just, kind of going through the steps, and you get one client and then you get another and then you get another, and you just learn every single time. And we still do this to this day. Every single time we do something, we refine and tweak and make it better the next time. Sure. Like the strategy we started off talking about is a very, very different strategy than the one we did 3 months ago, or the one I'll do next week, because we have another one next week. And so every single time we're tweaking and making things better, just to figure out how we can just, again, constantly just evolve and be the best that we can be.
Is a lot of that fleshed out in your Monday morning 2-hour meeting, or is it in other times?
Honestly, it's in real time. It happens constantly.
Okay.
Constantly. I mean, we're very, very agile in how we function. And it's very purposeful in that. I was fortunate enough to work for a software company prior to this. And so I learned a little bit of the ways of sort of that mindset. And it was very helpful for me to kind of figure. And so we do Scrum every morning. We're not a software company, but we do Scrum every Monday morning. And it's extremely helpful for us to say, okay, what's going on? What can we fix? What do we need help with? And then we try to do a postmortem on a lot of things too, to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and how can we make it better. Yeah. But also too, giving the ownership to our team to be able to come with that feedback and being okay, and them feeling comfortable to say, this doesn't work and here's why. So I think, looking back, the community was a huge supporter of how we got started. And I mean, I'm so thankful that we have the resources that we do. And looking back, I mean, I think that's only strengthened and grown immensely since I, leveraged it back in 2018.
Just for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Scrum or Agile, I'll do my best to kind of explain it. But especially in the world of software, there's always a myriad of things that you can do for a customer. A customer's paid you to build a software application or a system. There's always going to be new features they want. There's always going to be bugs that need to be fixed. And so the idea of Scrum and having that meeting, first you have a meeting with your team. Okay, I've met with the customer and they say that these 12 things are a priority. Everything else will have to wait. It's backlog. And then you do a sprint over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and only those 12 things are worked on, which culminate in a release. Mm-hmm. The software team does the release. There's some testing, of course, around it, and the customer gets those features in that release. Then you proceed with, okay, what was in our backlog? And you work with the customer. Now, what do you want to prioritize in the next release? Mm-hmm. Right? Fair?
Yep.
So same thing. Yeah. And I think Scrum, it's interesting. It came out of the software development world, but it applies everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even with this podcast. But okay, here's episode 31. What do I want to do different in episode 32? Mm-hmm. Because I'm trying to improve a little by little, bit by bit. Realistically, what can I do? And every episode's a little bit different. And I would imagine saying, what are we going to do for this customer that we absolutely nailed it and hit it out of the park, or we didn't, and we need to make sure we fine tune that.
Yeah, I mean it's a great cycle to get your team sort of versed in, right?
Yeah,
because they realize that there's not just one way to go about doing something, and they also realize that I want them to have ownership over decisions. I want them to feel empowered to make decisions and to challenge me, challenge the team, challenge the client where they need to, and being able to create an environment where we have that open discussion, and not only with just an individual, but our whole team has that together, so we can each kind of share challenges and, like you would say, customer requirements and things like that. It's a little bit different where we do, but it just really helps to create that environment. I think that just keeps things very transparent and flowing in a very nice way, and just holds us all accountable to what we need to do. So
awesome. Let's talk about SheBoss.
Okay.
When did that come along? So that's your podcast, and it's both audio and video. Mm-hmm. I have been to your office, and I think some of the pictures that I had on your screen are rotating through. It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
There was an article written in the Huntsville Business Journal where I forgot their name, the reporter that did the article, Lori went in and
she's great.
Commented on just what a great space it is. It's just well decorated. You mentioned your husband did some of the carpentry and the woodworking. Yeah. And there's that beautiful, and I've seen it now more and more, that floral wall, the ivy or
the greenery.
Greenery.
Yeah.
There's a good word. And that's kind of your backdrop now for your episodes.
Yeah.
But and actually, why don't we go to your website while I have this up, and we can get to that. But is there anything, if I have your website up,
if you go to resources and then SheBoss,
okay,
you'll be able to see all the videos there.
We can come back later to anything else you might want to highlight on there. But number one is, this is by far one of the most professional pages related to like a podcast. If anybody who's on a podcast, if you're on Spotify and Apple, which I know you are, you get your page. But when it comes to the attention to detail on the headshots of your guests, it's just outstanding photography.
Thank you.
The other thing is, when you actually listen to them, I believe the audio track changes. The opening song, whoever you're doing in the production side, it's always different.
It's always different,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I kind of now I wonder what they're going to choose next time. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's hard enough to pick, okay, what should the colors of my company be? And they can't be Auburn or Alabama related. And I've got to toe the line. I find the same thing with my color set, right? It can't be too red. It can't be orange. I want to be neutral from all that. But then like, you could probably sift through 2,000 audio tracks for, let's say, Sarah Mulder, and like, well, is that the right one?
Right. Yeah, because Sarah is super unique, and you want to use something that,
And there's that greenery in the background.
And you can tell we kind of change, again, like we evolve, right? So not everyone looks the same. We're debating on removing the glass of wine out of the SheBoss logo because we're doing them random times now.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'm like, not that it's ever too early to have a glass of wine, but
Or mimosas you drink a lot,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. We could definitely do that. But yeah, so they change up a little bit, But SheBoss has been a really, really fun journey for us, and just to kind of give some backstory as to how it really came to be. There's Peggy Lee. I don't know if you watch Peggy Lee's. If you got to watch it till the end, there's something really funny at the end, like the last 5 minutes of it.
Okay.
I call her out on something, a little fun fact that a shared friend of ours told me about. She's an amazing karaoke singer, apparently. And Lee Christian, the Catalyst, she's amazing. And Lacey Reinhold, she's awesome with Urban Engine now. And the Pizzelles ladies, they were amazing. We had so much fun shooting that. The B-roll on that was amazing. And then that's my cousin, Jenny.
Oh, let me go down.
In the bottom left. She has a very successful business. She's down in Orlando, and her and my uncle make beautiful, all sorts of different things out of wood and like wreaths and ornaments and all sorts of stuff. And she is kicking butt. And I was like, girl, I used to babysit her, And
If I paid the money, could they make me in a slab of wood the Alabama, like the state?
Oh,
I'm looking.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
looked. I was actually at Buc-ee's in down at Beach
I
Express.
went there twice on our way to Atlanta and on
Really?
the way back. Holy cow, that place is insane. The jerky wall.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like,
and there's one going to be built here.
I know. I'm so excited. So excited.
That's my first time. I had
It's
no
amazing,
idea what
isn't
this
it?
thing Buc-ee's was.
It's insane. It is insane.
Yeah, but I almost bought, and it actually ended up being a Lazy Susan. But I was like, it was the perfect size, and just I want something with the Alabama silhouette behind me, when I'm talking. And,
Yeah.
But I would love a piece, like a slab of wood.
Oh yeah. She actually made me something really cool. Not to get off topic, but
It's your episode. We can go.
we can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want.
But after my dad passed, we had a big life celebration at my sister's house. She lives right on the water in Tampa, and we had oysters and champagne, and like we just laughed and did all these fun things. And I had her make. You could take handwriting from a card or from anything, and she took his handwriting and cut it out in wood. And so I have little letters of his writing, and I made it for my brother and my sisters, and it was, you are the best, love, Dad, XOXO. It's on a plaque about this big, but it's all wood. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's his handwriting that was just taken from a card. But she makes the most amazing things, so I'll connect you with her for sure.
That'd be sweet.
But, early on, looking back before when I was early on in my career here in Huntsville, I was heavily involved in Public Relations Council of North Alabama, and just involved in different things. And I would go to these luncheons and I would go to these events, and I would sit, and look across the room, and I would see women like Lori Miller, who is just someone that I admire. I've admired her for so long. She's been at WH&T forever. She just announced that she's retiring and doing something new. But I would look across the room and I was a little bit shyer just because I hadn't really come out of my shell and didn't really have an identity, I think, in this space. And I would just meet all of these women, and I would look at them and say, God, I want to be like them when I grow up,
Yeah.
And I mean, like Stephanie Walker was one of them, with Rocket City Mom, and she's also retiring. I'm like, what? But all of these women, I would just look at them and envision like, wow, they must just have it made, and they must just, I don't know. I had this preconceived notion in my mind about how they got to where they were. And,
or kind of, you're the only one that had a tough go.
Right. Like, right. I just, you just can't really, I don't know. I couldn't relate at the time. So I was so fortunate that I had an opportunity to meet a lot of these women. And when I did, I became really great friends with them, and we just bonded. And I'm like, wow, they're just like me. We have the same struggles, same challenges, same this. And I'll never forget, like, Michelle Stark is one. I love Michelle. She's amazing. And I'll never forget, like, her and I became friends. And of course, she's being on TV. So you're just like, wow, she always looks so beautiful and this and that. And then you meet her, and Michelle's the most down-to-earth, super cool chick. And I'll never forget, we were on a webinar one time during COVID because we couldn't do the face-to-face, luncheons, and she's moderating a panel. And we're just like secretly chatting while things are going on. I'm like, what's up, girl? And I'm like, oh my God, I was frazzled. I didn't think I was going to make it. And she's like, oh, you should see the back of my head, because she did her front, but not the back. And so, but it was so funny because I'm like, we all have the same, you know what I mean? And so during COVID, one of the things that I wanted to do was just, let's figure out a way to just engage in the community. I wanted to create content that would just get people out of that mindset of just being home and getting depressed and this and that. taking the pandemic out of the picture, being home for the first couple of weeks during that was amazing. I loved it. I get to go on early morning walks with my youngest son, and we'd go fishing all the time. We have a pond in our backyard, and I loved it. But then eventually I was like, I'm going to lose my freaking mind,
Yeah.
And I know everybody felt the same way. So we really wanted to do something from a business perspective that was just a way to just engage. And so I thought about SheBoss. I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just interview other women who I've had a chance to meet and really show that side of them that most people just don't get to see. Peggy Lee Wright, if you've never met Peggy Lee Wright, you may look at her from afar and just look at her beautiful family, and she's so beautiful, and she's, a former, helicopter pilot, and she's had all of these successes throughout her career. And you meet her, and she's just as successful in person, but she's also the most down to earth, super fun, super chill. And I just love that. I just felt like telling that side of the story made the potential of reaching a comparable success more achievable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just helped to kind of break down some of those barriers that you think might stand in your way of being able to achieve that too. So we launched SheBoss.
And if you don't mind me interjecting,
Yeah.
I haven't finished Peggy Lee Wright, but I started Lee Marshall. I started Peggy Lee. I started Maya. It's just a different spelling, right? I have to always think it's Maya, but MAIAH or whatever. But Lee Marshall, like immediately you will wonder, why is she so involved with Kids to Love? And she used to be a TV anchor. And then right away in the episode, she's like, well, I was in foster care.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Like not a lot of people know that.
Right.
Not
And it's one thing to be, and she got adopted when she was 2, but we all know that just immediately you start to think, oh my gosh, my situation, as bad as it may be, like, oh my, I wasn't a foster child, right? And you start looking at how amazing that woman is to get where she is, have the right perspective.
Yeah.
And I loved this kid on the playground tried to insult her and said, oh, you're a foster kid, your parents didn't want you. And she's like, yeah, but your parents had to settle or something, like settle for you.
Right. They didn't have a choice.
They didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
They had to settle with you. She's like, I got chosen by my parents. They chose me.
Yeah, they didn't choose
your
you.
parents. And I thought
Isn't that funny?
That's excellent.
I mean, and Lee is like, oh my gosh, she is
Yeah.
amazing. That's exactly it, right? It was like, let's kind of help to just tell these stories that I personally felt touched me in such a way that really influenced me and encouraged me as a woman, that I wanted to just bring that to other people. Full transparency, I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I didn't think it was going to be anything that would have lasted this long at all. It was the most low production value ever, and it was done. And again, it was like, okay, let's do this over a cocktail. We're gonna go live. The initial thought was we're gonna go live on Facebook every Wednesday at 3. And that was going to be the thing. Yeah. Holy cow. I did that one time.
That's hard to do.
Never again. And we totally messed it up. It didn't go live. It was such a hot mess looking back, but whatever. I don't care. We had fun with it, but I'm in my guest bedroom at home because it's the pandemic, and I've got the sticky note on the door telling my kids not to bother me and keep the dogs downstairs because we're live, or shooting. And it was just through Zoom. It wasn't a big deal, but so we just sort of started with that. And it's been something that I've just loved so much doing. And we're continuing to do it. And we've got a bunch of phenomenal women lined up that we're going to be talking to, and that are just like you. We try to do it once a month because we just do it once a month. But it's been amazing. We love it, and we want to continue doing it and just grow it and make it huge and continue to highlight on an amazing women, but tell again a side of the story that a lot of people don't get a chance to hear, which I think is just a really unique way to kind of just get to know them and hopefully learn a little bit about yourself, at the same time.
Yeah, so. There's always that selfish aspect, right? Just talking to you that's going to personally help me. Yeah. And I have that unique opportunity now to have met with 31 different people and sitting on that side of the table and just take a little bit of their story, right? Just selfishly like, wow, I really needed to hear that. Yeah. That was really good. Or I can maybe help someone else that had a similar situation, right? Or just something comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Actually, a shout out to one of the first episodes I listened was the Urban Engine one where you were interviewed. So when I go running, I run Bradford Creek Trail. So from where I live down to Palmer, it's 2.5 miles.
I do that
You
trail
do
all the
same
time.
one? I never see you.
It's right behind my house.
What time of day do you go?
So in the morning, I usually go about 6:15. So are you doing the half marathon or a marathon?
When
You
is
do-
it?
It's in December.
I should sign up.
You should sign up.
Yeah.
That's my husband and I are doing that. So, anyways, but I run on that all the time.
Yeah.
Our house is our cul-de-sac backs up to that park.
That park.
Yeah, so
and
that's
I think,
the pond I'm talking about.
and
that
that's
you
the
said.
quarter mile. I think it's a quarter mile around that trail, right? I think I just saw that sign the other day.
Oh, I don't. Oh, you mean on the greenway?
Well,
or around the pond?
that pond. I had never noticed that sign till the other day where it says, "Oh, hey," basically it's like a track.
Oh, I have never seen
And
it.
if you run it 4 times, you're going to run a mile. Because I always stop at the porta potty.
Yeah.
Like that's when I hit that parking lot. Because I start at Heritage Elementary.
Yeah.
That's 2 miles.
Got it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I need to go to the bathroom, I go, and then we'll continue on.
Continue
Yesterday, Wendy will ride her bike a lot next to me, and
Yeah.
we go and we talk, and that's 2.5 miles of Palmer.
It's beautiful. I love it over there. We're out there almost every single day.
So what I do in prepping for a guest, I usually start once I finish tonight, I'll start thinking about my next week's guest and just transition. And shout out to Toni Eberhart and to Matt McClellan, I think, are the hosts of the Urban Engine podcast, which you were on. And I drew a lot from that, and also just really appreciated what they're doing for nonprofit, let alone, I think Matt has his own company. Toni works for Booz Allen.
You need to think about having her on.
Oh, I've never met her.
Oh, she's a dear friend of mine.
Okay.
So so funny story with Toni.
And she's on Launch 2035 on the entrepreneurial, because I just interviewed John Joseph.
Yeah.
So she's a co-chair with him.
Yeah. She's heavily involved in the Singing River Trail and all of that. And but Toni, her husband Chad, they moved down here from Pennsylvania for him to get his PhD at UAH. He's a literal rocket scientist, and she was working for the Social Security Administration at the time, and I was working for the Army. And so when they moved, I actually interviewed Toni. When she was still in Pennsylvania, to come down because she was going to be working for our client, which was the Army.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so she started this position, and she was this young, eager, had just moved down, no babies yet, and was in this civilian position with 2nd Recruiting Brigade. And so she, in essence, was my client, like back in the day. And then they dissolved her position. I left the Army and went to a software company, and I hired Toni, and she worked for me at the software company.
Okay.
And then get this. I had to lay her off when she was home after she had a baby.
Oh gosh.
Like, how is this even legal? Anyways, it was awful. And she's a dear friend of mine. You know what I mean? So I had to it was horrible.
Yeah.
And then she gets let go and starts something different, and I get let go from that same company and start something different. And then we come back together with Urban Engine, and her and I were heavily involved with Urban Engine when it used to be New Leaf Digital, and she was just a volunteer. It's before you got here, but it was kind of the history on Urban Engine. And so I've always been, closely tied with her, just in that regard, and did some volunteer work for them. So anyways, but it's just interesting how things have come full circle. So and her 3 kids are the cutest things ever, but you just definitely have her on. She's awesome.
You were just making me think of every time an employee gets kind of a raw deal through something, and I've had people get a raw deal, and I've had to let them go. I said, listen, I guarantee you'll end up in a better situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's just karma.
And she did. Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
This is a sucky situation, and I can't take away the pain and the frustration you're going to have over the ensuing days. But I guarantee you're going to call me in 3 to 4 weeks, and you're going to say you were right, because you will always land on your feet better when you get kind of screwed over.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, getting laid off from the job that I did was the best thing that ever could have happened to me.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, in that moment, so painful.
Yeah.
But looking back, the best thing, and I needed it. I really did.
So let's kind of a segue. Let's talk about Ragnar, and fitness. So we're going to talk about Ragnar here in a second. But have you always been a runner or working out? Is that something you've just kind of picked up to deal with stress and to deal with, pain in life? Is kind of, I found that during the pandemic, I had so much stress from work because I was like the counselor, right? Everyone's struggling. I'm having to hear it all. I don't have anybody to talk to because I'm the manager.
Yeah.
And I would run sometimes twice a day just to just to
Get it out.
decompress and
Yeah.
get it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, running does that. It's hard when you're in that position because it's lonely. It gets lonely at the, not I want to say at the top, but when you're in a position of management, sometimes that can be a very lonely place to
Sure.
be. So I was never into fitness at all. I did sports when I was a kid, but besides that, I never really got involved in anything. And then when we moved to Huntsville, I was just telling this story the other day, but we moved to Huntsville, and I was taking Madison to go get donuts one Saturday morning. We were driving up to Krispy Kreme, and we got caught on Airport Road in the Rocket City Marathon traffic. And so we're sitting there, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Oh, and you're seeing the cop out there blocking the road, and you see all these people run by, and you see like this old guy, and you see this overweight woman, and you see this young kid, and then you see and I'm like, they're all walks of life running the Rocket City Marathon, 26 miles, right? 26.2.
Yeah.
It's the point two that really gets you. You got to get there. So watching this, I was like, oh my God, if these people can run this, I'm like, if they can do it, surely I can do it,
Yeah.
So I legit went home that day and I registered for a 5K. That was in like 2 weeks.
How long ago was this?
This was in 2000. What was this? This was probably in like 2009.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I registered for a 5K that was up behind the old Grissom in South Huntsville. And that's where I used to live, in South Huntsville. And it was some Winter Winds 5K, I think it was what it was. I hadn't run at all, but I went to the YMCA and I just started running on a treadmill. And aging myself, but that's when iPods came out for the first time. And so I got an iPod. And so music is my jam. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can like listen to my own playlist while I'm running, and I discovered the Nike playlists and all of that. And so I had a guy in my ear saying, you can do it, 30 seconds, increase your speed, And so I learned how to do hill repeats and speed repeats and all this kind of stuff. And I was hooked. I wasn't only hooked because immediately I'm like shedding weight. Holy cow. But it was therapy for me. And, it was absolute therapy for me. So I did this first 5K. I was miserable. It snowed. It was super hilly. I had not planned anything. I'm not a huge planner. So I was just like, whatevs, I'll just show up and it'll be fine. Oh my God. I cursed the entire time. But of course, when I was done, I was hooked, right? You just get that adrenaline and I'm like, when's the next one?
Embrace the suck.
Oh, I totally embraced the suck. It was amazing. And I'll never forget, like I was holding my keys the whole time because I was wearing like cotton. This things you don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know. And so looking back, I'm like, what a joke. But I did it and I finished it and I loved it and I was hooked. So I immediately signed up for more races and I was just doing race after race after race, running at the gym.
Just 5Ks?
I would do 5Ks and I would do a couple of 5Ks and then I'd do a 10K, and then I decided to sign up to do the Rocket City Marathon. And I was like, all right, I'm doing this thing. And so I did a Fleet Feet class, where you run a couple times a week. And I loved that so much because number one, you learn how to run and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's a big deal for me anyway.
And that's a good gauge on if you can't handle the pace you're at.
It is for sure. But I was running with these women and it was we're sitting there talking for 4.5 hours.
Oh, true.
And, because you got to run 18 miles at 5:00 in the morning on a Saturday. And so that legitimately became my therapy. And I needed therapy at that time. I didn't know it, but I definitely needed it.
Right.
And so I was hooked because I just found this outlet where I finally felt like I just could just be myself. And of course, at the same time, you're running 18, 19 miles every week, if not more than that. And it was amazing. And I was challenging myself in ways that I didn't even know was physically possible. So I did the marathon. Unfortunately, I rolled my ankle on like mile 23.
Oh, no.
And so the rest, I could hear the cheers. And I'm like, I'm coming, so it was okay. I didn't have a time goal. It was just about finishing.
But you finished.
I finished. And, Madison was there at the finish line a little bit before it. And she jumped in and she finished it with me and ran across the finish line with me. And I've got a picture of her and I, which was so cute. I think she was like 6. It was adorable.
So you started, was that like the 2011 time frame? Do you remember what year it was?
I think it was actually. Now that I think
so 2010 was kind of, you signed up for a bunch of races, and then 2011, like, oh, I'm doing the marathon.
I think it was 2011. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was the year that the marathon shirts were hot pink. I remember that.
Okay.
So I did the marathon and I finished it and I was like, I think I'm good. I don't think I want to do another marathon because that was a lot.
Yeah.
The hard part, the training part of it was Saturday mornings, you're out for 4.5 hours.
Sure.
And that was a lot with, with little kids. So, and Madison was my running buddy. So I had a running stroller and she'd be in the stroller when she was younger and she'd be like, go mommy, go, faster, faster, faster. And then, which was just so much fun. It was great. And so then I discovered Ragnar races.
Yeah.
Which, holy cow, Ragnar races, and I know we share this commonality with Ragnars. They are the most gnarly and disgusting but amazing experiences ever. And so I was fortunate enough to meet a group of a lot of great people who were just as crazy and wanted to do the Ragnar races. So we did, and for those who don't know, Ragnar is a 200-mile relay race where you go from one city to the next.
The road version.
The road version, yeah. I did the trail version too. Oh my God, never again, never again. But did the road version and did that in a couple different cities and did it in Hawaii too, which was super cool.
So just real quick on the road version, you got 12 people on your team, 6 in each van.
Or you could have just 6 if you're crazy.
You can do the ultra.
We did 12.
But in theory, van 1 drops off runner 1 on the first segment. Then they go up to checkpoint, and then runner 2 gets dropped off. They pick up runner 1, right? And you just leapfrog until you're done.
It's relay, right? And it was, you just smell, you stink, you don't shower,
But the adrenaline during the night,
so much fun.
Did you get to run like at 2 in the morning?
Yeah, it was the best. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was Ragnar races are hands down one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, honestly. And the friendships that you make throughout it, and the people that you get to meet, and just the laughs that you have around everything. Oh, there you go.
By the way, real
so
quick,
much fun.
that lady looks like Rachel Sullivan, I think.
She does.
And that's not Rachel, right?
No, it's not.
But I'm like, wait a minute. No, what are the chances?
Oh my gosh, how funny! No, that's not. She's not a runner. She works out, but she's not a runner like
now,
that. But.
Did you do the ones in? So here's a map or like a listing of the ones across the country. But where did you do your race?
So we did Hawaii.
Wow.
I did Hawaii,
Okay.
where we ran around the north end of the main island. I did Seattle to Vancouver. I did that one. The Northwest Passage was that one. I did Atlanta, which was the trail run. And then I did, is there one in Tennessee, I think?
Yeah, there should be.
Whatever one is in Tennessee, I did as well.
They may have done away with that.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done a couple Ragnars.
But the Northwest Passage is there.
That was absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful.
Now, if I click on the one that immediately comes that's interesting to me is the Florida Trail, and I just love this picture.
Oh, that's pretty.
And part of the running the trails, and
I love trail running.
It's a lot of times like you want to be a tourist guy, or, like you're your own. You want to feel like a tourist, where you're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But you have to keep running.
Right, right.
know.
But that's the beauty of Ragnar, though, right? You get to experience a new place, like the Hawaii one. Are you kidding me? That was, you're in.
So that was on Oahu.
It was on the main island of Hawaii.
Okay.
And it was, in the morning you're running in what looks like a rainforest, and then in the afternoon you're running mountains, and then in the afternoon you're by the water. The vegetation shift was insane, and it would be freezing, and then you'd be hot. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
But it was amazing.
It's brutal.
Beautiful.
Like you said, I always found that the toughest was from like on the trail version, actually does even the road version.
The Atlanta Trail one. Have you done that one?
I haven't done the Atlanta Trail. I've done Richmond, Virginia twice. I did last summer with my son in West Virginia. It was called the Appalachian. It wasn't the Appalachian Trail, but you're in the Appalachians. It was a place called Big Bear Lake Campground. And I did the road version from Cumberland, Maryland to DC.
Okay.
200 miles.
Yeah.
And
So you gonna do another one?
Well, I want to. It's just a matter of finding a team. And clearly in Alabama, you either need to go to Tampa for there's a state park, or go to Atlanta. My mom lives in Atlanta now. I could do it in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Maybe go up to Tennessee or Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's right. There was a Kentucky one.
Kentucky has one now.
Maybe that's,
Yeah.
The trail in Atlanta was very, very difficult. That was very challenging.
Really?
And running trails in the middle of the night when you can't see anything, that's just recipe for disaster. Trip and fall, and
I found, as I got tired, I tripped a lot, and it's just because you don't feel like you're that tired,
Oh, your
but
body is
you just drag your
spent.
foot 1 little millimeter and down you go.
Right. I mean, and you're spent because you're just
Yeah.
exhausted. You don't sleep at all, right? And it's so much fun. I
Yeah.
love it. I know. So we're trying to get a team together.
Okay.
Just so you know, we haven't picked which one, but I connected with a good girlfriend of mine, Kim Hansen here, who's she's a bigwig over at AMC Public Affairs, but she has been I've run Ragnar's with her, and I just talked with her the other day, and I'm like, we've got to get a team together. She's like, hell yeah, we need, and she does like full triathlons, like she's really into it. So I saw her at the gym, and she's like, let's do it. I'm like, we're doing it. So we're gonna find one. My husband's on board, so I'll let you know.
You know what's even harder than that, and it doesn't seem like it, but I walked in a 28-mile ruck. Well, I didn't have any weight on, but we walked 28 miles. Mm-hmm. That was, if you don't have the right equipment,
I could only imagine.
That made Ragnar just look like a piece of cake.
So, I mean, what's the...
We just, it was so in episode 5, I interviewed Thad Forrester. His brother Mark was killed in Afghanistan. So it's a memorial walk.
Gotcha.
It's now been 12 years. So this was they normally do it in Haleyville, but with COVID and stuff, they did kind of more of a virtual walk. So I went over to Hampton Cove. He had it all mapped out. You know, we went through like a park area, and then we're going through neighborhoods. But by like mile 8, I realized I didn't have the right socks. I didn't have the right shoes. And for 20 miles, I was just walking on blisters. Now, in Ragnar, I don't get blisters.
Oh, it's the worst.
You know, like you kind of prepare and you train because you're running. I was explaining this to Wendy. Like we went walking on the beach this week, and my legs are really sore from walking, but I can run because that's a different muscle group. Mm-hmm. And that was torture. Walking 28 miles because we were out there for 13 hours straight, and it's just a different it's a different thing, right? And I've never really practiced walking.
You ever realize how important socks are, and shoes and insoles, and like, you know.
But at the same time, I love they embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do something like he wants to do like 1,000 step ups with weight. It's going to probably take 50 minutes to an hour stepping up on those little benches.
Yeah.
He's like, why not? He's like, I love discomfort. Like, well, I'll join you. You know?
Love it. But, you know, people used to say, what are you, crazy? I'm like, maybe. But I think a little crazy is good. You know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't know. I love it.
And when we're done off air, I'll tell you about a different race that I want to bring to this area that's never been done. And you're going to love it.
Okay.
I talked about it in the John Allen episode, and I took it out because I'm not ready to publicize it.
Have you done a Tough Mudder?
I've done Spartan.
Okay.
I've never done a Tough Mudder, but I'll recommend the Madison Mud Run to you if you've never done it. The Madison Academy.
No.
We did that back in April. It was awesome.
Really?
It was better than a Spartan race that I've run in.
Huh. Okay.
And so right over here.
Yeah.
And luckily it rained like 3 inches the night before. It was proper muddy.
Oh, I love it. So you're just disgusting.
And you ran like 3/4 of I guess there's horse trails back there because it's between the John Paul II campus and Madison Academy, and they have like these woods, and they definitely have like these horse trails. I think for like equestrian, whatever they do. And it was just full of mud. And then we had to go through the streams and the mud bogs and climb walls. It was a lot of fun. It was like $50.
Yeah, that's fun. And it's such a great physical challenge too, where at the end of it, you're like, there's no way I could do that. And then you do it. And it's just one step at a time. And it's so fulfilling, you know, which is amazing. My husband and I did a Tough Mudder. And there's some really scary obstacles associated with that, where you're going underwater and you're going into a pool of just ice. I can't remember. Oh, Arctic enema is what it was called.
Arctic enema.
One of the challenges was called Arctic enema, and it stuck with me because I thought I was going to die. And I was like, "This is, you know, I was like, this should be illegal." And my husband's like, "You know that waiver you signed?" I was like, "Yeah." But that kind of stuff, you know, I like it. I don't like where you're physically in pain, like they're purposefully, and you know, I mean, they had like electric shock thing. I'm like, come on, that's crazy. Like, I'm already putting my body through so much stuff right now. I'm like, but I'm curious to hear about your idea though.
Okay, I will.
Sign me up. Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned your husband. Let's now go to the Zegan World Tour. Or is it Zegan?
Zegan. I don't know.
All right, so if you look at, it's so funny when you sent this to me. I thought it was like a real thing.
I know, right?
And it's all because I didn't read all the words in your email. So I looked at it like, there's this world tour. Of course, I'm unaware, and I'm looking at all the sites, and I'm like, wow, they don't kind of seem to be in the Southeast. Yeah. Then I read your email again, and it occurs to me, this is what her and her husband have put together.
Yeah.
And if you look at the the chronology, if you will, of all the shows you've attended and where they were.
Yeah. And this is very outdated.
And I can't, just the way my software is, I have it cropped. You can't see the Zegan World Tour on this.
It's a Zegan World Tour on the road since 2017, no end in sight, which is obviously when my now husband and I got together, and we share the love of music. And so we're groupies, so we go to shows all the time. And so I thought it'd be fun to just create our own little, because that's our thing. If you come into our house and you go into our family room, it's just covered in concert posters everywhere. The rest of the house is not, but just that one room. And so we're running out of wall space, so we wanted to create our own concert poster.
So the name comes from what? The Greek letter zeta, which is kind of infinite, and then Megan is your name?
I love that you think I put that much thought in it.
No,
it's Zach combined with Megan.
Oh.
I know, but I really appreciate that you think I went that
I was
far.
like... I love it when I'm right, and I'm just demoralized when I'm wrong.
Like,
I was on a good theory.
When we got married, we had our wedding was just like super, super casual, and I love blackberry mules, Moscow mules, and so we had a drink called the Zegan, which was just that, and so we just kind of ran with it. So
all right, so this is what we're gonna do. Well, actually, anything in particular you want to highlight from all the shows? So starting back in June of 2015 to now, most of them are on there, I think. Venue wise or band wise that really sticks out?
Okay. So we saw Kaleo, second row Red Rocks, which is really hard to beat, but note to self, Red Rocks being that close up, you just don't get the full. I've been there a couple times, and it's better to be a little bit farther out because you get the full. If you're familiar
acoustic.
with that. When you're super close up, you just don't get quite the.
Sure.
But beautiful, amazing. We've done a couple of VIP packages. Like we don't go on big vacations. So with this, and I'm not like I need jewelry and like this is what we do, right?
Okay.
So this is where we invest our time. So we do a couple of VIP packages where we get to meet the artists and have a Q&A with them, which we just did this week with Judah and the Lion, which was really cool. And so you get a chance to meet these artists and hear the backstory of some of their songs, which then when you listen to their music, it's just so much more impactful because you're like, oh, I know where that came from.
Right.
We did that with Matt Carney. I took Madison, and we had an interview with him and got a chance to ask him questions, and he played songs that we asked, and now I can't listen to the music the same because now I'm like, I know why that, So I think that a lot of these shows are I don't know, they're so much fun. We went to like 4 Lord Huron shows, and one year took Madison to her first one, and I've got the best picture of her. She still had her braces on, and she's like this, and she's got the big black X's, you know.
Really?
And we were front row, and so she's like just so excited. But I snuck into a sound check one time for Lord Huron, and that was like my claim to fame. I was so excited. I kind of broke into the venue, and because I heard them playing, and I was like, let me just go creep in here. And so I walked in, and I just was able to sneak in there, and I got to watch them do sound check. I was the only one in there watching them, and I'm like dying, right? And then the security guard comes over, and he's like, hey, I'm like, so sorry, I'll just.
Was that at the Ryman in Nashville?
No, that was at Iron City down in Birmingham.
Okay.
So Birmingham and Chattanooga have got some great smaller venues. I'm a big fan of the smaller venues.
Yeah.
We saw the Lumineers at Bridgestone like a month ago, and we had great seats, but they're just so big. Those venues. Like I really really like the smaller, more intimate ones, which was why I'm so excited. We have Mars here now, which is great. So I mean it's been a lot of fun story. I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
So,
Please do.
So when I met my husband, I went on Match for like a hot second, and met him. And one of the things that I loved so much about it was he cracked me up from day one. He is so funny. Meeting him, it was like, that song where your cheeks hurt all the time because you're just smiling and laughing. Like that's how I feel when I'm with him. So the very first time that him and I hung out, we went to a concert, and he's like, I've got tickets to go to the show. Do you want to come with me? It's down in Birmingham, and I'll pick you up and we'll go down there. And I was like, well, I don't want to give you my address because what if you're some like crazy person and you send me like an inflatable sheep or something? I just don't know, So flash forward like 2 weeks, and he is picking me up to go down to the show to go see Patrick Sweeney. Patrick Sweeney's amazing. He's awesome. And I come home from work on that Friday, and I check my mail, and I've got this package in there, and it's an inflatable sheep. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? It's about this big. Its name was Lady Baba. It strongly encouraged you to like do funny things with it, not inappropriate, but like post on social media using hashtag and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, you physically sent me a blow up sheep. And he's like, I just thought, So I'm like, well, it's coming with us to the show. So we blow it up and we bring it with us to the Patrick Sweeney show. Yeah. And we took all these really funny pictures of the sheep experiencing the concert. And so like there's a picture of Lady Baba drinking a beer at the bar. There was an ashtray there and she's like smoking a cigarette, and like just.
So I might have missed it. So you had told him that.
Well, I was
the
like,
inflatable sheep.
Yeah, I was like, what are you going to do?
Okay.
Like, don't,
Gotcha.
And so it was just a joke. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, I'm going to send you this now
That's
because
funny.
that's what you said. So we go down to this show and we're just walking in the venue. We've got this little blow up sheep underneath our arm. And everybody's like, what the? And we kept the sheep with us the entire time. It was hysterical. And we're taking pictures with the sheep and all this kind of stuff. And then after Patrick Sweeney plays, I was Patrick Sweeney just Patrick Sweeney that night. And we go to meet him after the show. And of course, we've got Lady Baba with us. And he's like, so what's with the sheep, And, and we're like, it's a long story. Just don't worry about it. So we have a picture of Patrick Sweeney, the two of us, and the sheep. And it's sitting in our living room on our table. And so then flash forward a couple of years later and we go to a Patrick Sweeney show and that's where he proposed. I know. And so then we take this video and Zach and I made this video and we wanted to ask Patrick Sweeney to come play at our wedding. So I'm like, you never know. All you got to do is ask, right? And so we had the video and we had the sheep. We're like, maybe you remember us because we had Lady Baba. Unfortunately, he didn't reply to my wedding request. Yeah, that's okay. I won't hold it against him. But so there's definitely a nice romantic moment in there with Patrick Sweeney, setting the stage for us, but lots of funny stories involved with some of the shows that we've been to.
So the only place I've been that you've been, I just haven't obviously done it. We want to go to Nashville and Birmingham and all that, but I have been to Riverbend Amphitheater in Cincinnati to see Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, okay.
And I go I'll just tell you a quick story. I'm like, I think it was the summer after my senior year. So we had graduated. My buddies had met a couple girls at Myrtle Beach that were from Cincinnati. So I get stuck driving them from Virginia to Cincinnati. And what a good friend. But we're going to go see Jimmy Buffett. And we all Jimmy Buffett's kind of an older demographic.
Oh, yeah. I've been to a couple of his shows.
But one of my buddies had starting to get into it. So we're kind of doing like the crash course on listening to every song we could listen to so we could come across as like
you actually know.
Yeah. No. And I had no idea. He played 5 shows. Like Jimmy Buffett loves Cincinnati. They called it the Parrot City, but maybe he tells every city that. But 5 shows is a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah.
But we show up to like this family's house and we're having like dinner, like a barbecue, and they start bringing out like the costumes that we're supposed to wear to this concert. And I'm like, I'm not wearing that. Like everybody does.
But
Oh, and I'm like, no. Like we were the only ones who didn't dress up.
Yeah.
Because we thought we were going to be embarrassed. And you go there and I couldn't believe it was
it's
like
a cult. It's like a cult.
It was
It's
crazy.
amazing though. It's amazing though, isn't it? The
It was.
vibe. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
That's a great venue. That's a really great venue. I think Kings of Leon is who we saw there. And they're amazing. That was a great experience.
Yeah, it was probably the most people I've ever like just been like packed in like sardines.
Yeah.
And if you like moved, you just tried to move like 5 people away,
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you would just lose your friend. Like you
They're
couldn't
gone forever.
separate. Like
Yeah.
you would just get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, so let's do this. We're gonna play the Pick 6.
Okay.
And I have some outdoor venues for us to talk about.
Okay.
And one of which you've already mentioned, of course, Red Rocks. That'll be the first one. But just your comments, right? I don't know if you've ever been to these before. The Zegan tour existed. Talk about that, or otherwise, just kind of what comes to mind when I bring these up.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Sure.
All right, here we go with the Pick 6. Let me bring this up. Okay, so that's familiar.
Beautiful. A great place to work out too.
Really?
Run up and down the stairs. Yeah.
Oh, you did that? Mm-hmm. How many does it seat?
God, I have no
This is
idea.
Red Rocks, by the way. So for people listening, we're showing a daytime shot.
Oh,
and
so
this is
beautiful.
as if you're like back row of the stage.
I mean, there's not a bad seat. There's not a bad seat in that venue. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, looking at that when you drive up to Red Rocks from really any angle, it's one of those things that you're like, how in the world, the first people to discover that, I couldn't even imagine what they were thinking about, because you have these massive rocks coming out of the ground, and then you kind of turn a corner and you see that the venue, you know, how they kind of carved it out there. It is one of the most beautiful venues ever. It's
and now
gorgeous.
here's a shot of, now it's starting to, the
from
sun's
the
starting to
stage.
set, and
Yeah.
it's from the stage out to the crowd.
That's awesome. I saw Lyle Lovett there too.
Really? So
Yeah.
you've been there a couple times?
Just twice. Just saw Lyle Lovett and then Kaleo. Kaleo was a little bit better.
So, shout out to Foul Wow Designs. I'm wearing one of his shirts, Jonathan, and I need to follow up with him because he said he was basically going there this summer to achieve a bucket list item for him to see a show at Red Rocks, right? He's a huge concert nut.
Who's he seeing? Do you know?
I couldn't remember. He might have been, I don't think it was Dave Matthews. I can't remember. He just knew he was going to Red Rocks.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming there was a band, but it may have been more of like, I'm just going to see whatever show because it fits into his schedule and his kids or whatever. But
Yeah.
but that's also, I don't know, it's been a while. I can't remember. I have to go back and watch my own episode. All right, ready for the next one? Mm-hmm. Now, from this shot, I don't know how well you know amphitheaters. The next one might give it away. I have two shots. But let's kind of test Megan's ability here.
I don't know. Is this somewhere in Washington State? I don't know.
You're on the right coast.
Looks like the Northwest.
What if I give you that shot?
What is, I don't know what that is.
It's L.A. This is called the Greek Theater.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And in some suburb of Los Angeles. So on this shot, you kind of get a little bit more of what Southern California mountains look like.
That's gorgeous.
Which is, as much as I hate LA,
I know, I was going to say, I'm like, I don't know.
it is beautiful there.
Yeah.
You get into Pasadena and stuff, but this arena,
That's gorgeous.
and quite frankly, I didn't know about it till I was just Googling
Yeah.
and getting ideas on what pictures am I going to show Megan.
That's so it kind of, the other angle reminds me of the First Bank Amphitheater up in Franklin.
Franklin, Tennessee.
That's where you guys got to go. It's only open during the fall season. They just opened last year, but the First Bank Amphitheater, it looks like Red Rocks. It's
Really?
it is so top notch. It's not even funny.
Okay.
And it's kind of like the Orion, where the way that they designed it, you'll never wait in line more than 2 minutes for anything, whether it's the bathroom or a beer or a hot dog.
Really?
I mean, it's so well designed, and it's one of the most beautiful venues I've ever been to. I mean, it almost competes with Red Rocks, if I'm being honest, like from a view perspective. And it's 40 minutes from here, which is pretty great.
Oh, that's only 40 minutes?
We're in Madison. It's just up
That's
65.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
it's gorgeous.
Ooh, I'm so excited. All right, here we go. Next one. And I can't remember what order. Do you know where this is?
No.
I don't have another shot of this, but this is in Telluride, Colorado.
Oh gosh, that's gorgeous.
It looks like kind of a bluegrass band there playing, and I love Colorado.
Look at the mountains. Yeah, so pretty.
And I couldn't find another shot. I guess I didn't look hard enough. But that's a cool shot.
That is a cool
now,
shot.
here's one not in this country.
What is that down in the center?
It's the pit. Well, this is like
Is
an
that
orchestra
the
pit.
Oh my gosh.
And then I think these are just like these white symbols are just stuff that's being cast. This is in France.
That's so pretty.
And again, I didn't spend I just thought it was a beautiful shot.
It is.
Right. And should you ever go to Europe?
Next year.
Then you're.
I know, if we got to get Arctic Monkeys on a European tour. That way we could check the box. From Madison would absolutely die if we could see Arctic Monkeys over. And
I like the Arctic Monkeys.
they're great. They're really good.
All right. Now, this is Tennessee, and this is apparently in a cavern.
Is this like Raccoon Caverns?
I think so.
They
I
do
was hoping you
shows?
could help me out.
They do shows there?
I think there's something above ground, and then this is what's below ground.
Oh.
And in an actual cavern.
I mean, so I know Cathedral Caverns gets a lot.
That's it.
Oh, they do shows at Cathedral Caverns?
Apparently they do, because you
That
can see the
place.
lighting in there.
Have you guys been there yet?
No.
Oh, you got to go. You got to take the kids and go. It's always like a good 45 degrees, regardless of the time of year. It is beautiful.
Bring a jacket.
And it's a mile in and a mile back. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. But then we stumbled across Raccoon Caverns just outside Chattanooga when I took the kids up there a couple of years ago. And that was just as gorgeous, if not more. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. So, but yeah, that's pretty awesome. I would imagine, I wonder what the sound is like
I know, right?
in that kind of environment.
You might have to dial it down a little bit. 'Cause it
Yeah,
could be
probably.
overpowering.
That's where you need some headphones for sure.
And let's see. Okay, this one. I got two shots on this. But look at that backdrop.
You know what? I saw, where is this?
Washington State.
Yes, I saw Zach and I were watching something the other day and this venue was featured. How cool is that?
It's called the Gorge.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I mean, I didn't realize people will come to Alabama and don't realize in the foothills of the Appalachians just how beautiful it is, and the trees and the rivers and the rock formations. And I didn't realize in Washington State had this much of what kind of looks like New Mexico or Arizona or Colorado or Utah, right? Where, but Washington State is weird, where everything in Seattle is like forest.
Yeah.
Then you go over the mountain towards Yakima, and it's a desert.
Right.
But I don't know exactly where this part is.
Yeah, we experienced that a little bit with Ragnar.
Yeah,
you
I bet.
Seeing that landscape.
That's
it was
true.
very unique. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Now I think I have one more, and this one should be a no-brainer for you.
Oh, is this in Tampa?
No,
Where? I don't know where this is.
somewhere else that's
I don't know where that
that
is.
your family has
That's fun.
resided, or you may have had family reside on Long Island, New York.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
This is the Jones Center.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've never been there, but
There's
is
some really cool
pretty
shots if you look
awesome.
at this at
Wow.
night. I mean, you're like, that's New. I was like, that's New York.
Wow.
What?
And it's in Long Island?
Yeah, it's in yep.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's really big. Like
That is
that's
big.
like stadium, like half of
Cow.
like a football stadium or something, right?
That would scare the crap out of me to be at those seats all the way at the top. Whew. That would be hard. That's pretty.
That was the pick six.
I love it.
So it gave you some things to
great.
think about in your.
Yeah. Well, now the Gorge, you just reinforced the fact that we need to go do that because
Yeah.
we just saw it the other night. And yeah, Zach and I were like, wait, yeah, that's on the list.
Okay, so
For
now
sure.
we're also going to play the quick six.
Okay.
And I always tease this. No one's really come back to say, "Hey, Troy, you promised that you were going to do the quick six, and you didn't with a certain guest."
Okay.
But and typically I say that the answers don't have to be quick. It just sounds cool.
Okay.
But these are I kind of wrote these to be a little bit more brief.
You want me just to?
As brief as you want.
Okay.
But sometimes, I don't know, I'm always long-winded, or I always give a lot of background and context. It's hard for me to give a short answer, but first one's real easy. Atlantic or Pacific? Ocean.
Atlantic.
Okay. I knew you'd say that. Red wine or white wine?
Oh, red wine.
Okay. I don't drink, so it's like, I would just hope that was a good question to ask.
That's a good question
That's
to
a
ask.
stupid question. I used to have to do our holiday party, and they give me the wine list. I'm like, can somebody else fill this out?
Because you don't know.
And I don't care what you pick, just something everyone will enjoy. If you have a baked potato, what are you putting on it?
Butter, salt, and pepper.
No chives or bacon? Okay. You go to Outback a lot?
No.
Never? I always think, like, Outback's one place I always get a baked potato for some reason. And then
It's
just get
part
it
of the
loaded.
staple there, yeah.
So butter, salt, and pepper. Okay. Cruise or all-inclusive?
None.
None.
I'll never cruise.
Okay.
You couldn't pay me enough money to go on a cruise ship. Absolutely not.
What if
No.
Arctic Monkeys was playing?
Nope.
Okay.
Because if they're on tour, they're gonna be playing elsewhere. I can go see them at a cooler venue. You will not find me on a cruise ship ever. I have done all inclusive a couple times, which is a lot of fun. But there's a difference between some all inclusives, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So knowing just because it says all inclusive doesn't mean that you get, But I would definitely go with an all inclusive for
Okay.
sure.
If other than the choice you chose for your Flourish color, by the way, what color green? How do you
Sort of like a teal.
teal?
Yeah.
What would be your next choice? It can't be green. So if it was some other color, what was like the runner-up
For the company?
for your company?
Oh gosh, I have no idea.
Or if you had to rebrand and someone came to you and said, "Megan, look, the teal is just so old-fashioned.
It's just it needs to go.
It needs to go. You've got to go with a different color set."
Well, I would probably want to stay away from something that would be too feminine.
Okay.
I really like Nicole in our office wears the most beautiful coral orange nail polish, and I just love it. And that sounds orange. It's like, ugh, but it's this beautiful light kind of coral, almost like a pastel coral kind of color. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's just very soothing. And I don't know, I love it. So maybe that.
Okay. When you go to Clearwater and you had to if you went back to Clearwater and had to, escort someone around and give them the tour, which I'm sure you've done.
Yeah.
What's your hope that they leave? Like, what is the one thing that you hope that when they leave, you've left this impression on them? Not necessarily the favorite thing, but
Yeah.
what is it you want someone to leave as their final impression of Clearwater?
Well, I think first things first, my family, because
Okay.
they're down there. So I, want to introduce them. But I think going to Frenchie's on Clearwater Beach and getting a grouper sandwich and having
boy.
some really good oysters. Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a big seafood person. So, oysters, we grew up on raw oysters.
Oh, boy.
Grossed my mom out like crazy. And we'd always do the hachoo, like it was a big booger that came out. So I would say on the beach, eating some good seafood. But Frenchie's is always a good go-to, great place on the beach to get a phenomenal grouper sandwich. So that's what I would leave them with.
All right. So this is the last question. And I don't think this is as bad as like you whether or not you're going to go on a cruise, but under what circumstance? So if you're taking a flight from LA to Sydney, Australia, it's a long flight.
My in-laws just got there today.
Really?
Yeah.
And under what circumstance would you fly there in a middle seat? Like I wouldn't go. If someone said
wouldn't go?
I've flown to Australia and I've flown on the top deck.
Isn't it 13
It's
hours?
13 hours.
Yeah.
And I flew business class on the top deck, which was awesome, but then I flew business class like it was almost the same as economy.
Yeah.
I don't think I would go in a middle seat.
Yeah, I think that would be really hard. I think it would be challenging, but if I'm being honest, I would be really thankful that I got a chance to
Okay.
go and not really get hung up too much on the seat.
Good answer.
Sorry, I know. I mean, I've never been to Australia. I would love to go. I'm sure I would bitch and complain about the 13 hours, but
First world problems, right?
I know,
Like, I'm not going
right?
with the middle
I
seat.
know. So I think I'd be okay with it. I'd
All
probably
right.
just knock myself out with some Tylenol PM and just sleep the whole time or something and just not worry about it.
I guess I did sound snobby there. Oh, well.
It's okay.
But
it's
man,
okay.
it's like you feel like time is like you're just never going to get there.
Right.
Right. When time seems to stand still on an airplane.
Right. And there's nowhere you can go. I've never been on a flight that long, so I haven't had that quite of an experience just yet. So, maybe one day. My father-in-law is Australian.
Okay.
So, my husband's great-grandfather has a resort that he built back in the day. Yeah. It's gorgeous. And so, I don't think it's still in the family, but, so we have plans to go out there for sure. Not this year, obviously, but hopefully sometime soon.
Well, when you do go, you're going to have to go to Sydney Opera House and take in a concert.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Megan, anything else you want to talk about before we close the episode?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just, we talked about this early on when we first discussed this podcast. I think it's awesome that you get a chance, that you're bringing people on and just hearing their story and taking a really unique approach to an interview process. You made this comment early on about sort of engaging with clients and kind of how you build that relationship. And I think it boils down to just being an active listener, but truly showing curiosity about an individual, which I think really results in a great interview. And similar to SheBoss, you get to see a side of people that you don't typically get a chance to see, you know? So I would say thank you for that. I'm excited that y'all are here in Huntsville. Welcome to Huntsville.
Thank you.
I know you're new, but what a great way to get thrown into the community. And I think it's pretty awesome. So I guess the only other thing I would say is thank you, and that, I'm fortunate to be here and very thankful to be here. And, we've got such an amazing team that I get a chance to work with every day, and they're awesome. They're the reason why, we get to do what we get to do every single day. So I'm thankful for them, but yeah. And we're neighbors. We're 5 minutes away.
That's
so I'll
right.
See you guys out running.
Right now you have the record for the shortest commute.
Literally, I was sitting on my chair, eating a yogurt before I came over here, and my thing popped up on my phone. It's like, 5 minutes. It'll take you 5 minutes to get there. I'm like, awesome. I love this.
I have tomorrow I'm entertaining some people coming from DC, our Air Force portfolio. They're coming down, and the guy was like very concerned. He's never been to Huntsville. So he's like, hey, if I leave by 11 to catch a 1:00 flight, am I going to have enough
Isn't that
time?
funny?
I said, when you're there, I will tell you in person how close I've cut it. But let me just tell you, you could leave by 11:45 or 12 and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about traffic. Don't worry about airport congestion.
Yeah.
But I literally woke up. I had a 6:20 a.m. flight. I woke up at 5:20. And I think we left for the airport at 5:45.
It's great.
And I made it.
Yeah. I love that.
It was kind of final call. I pushed it a little too close.
Yeah.
But I went right through security. I went right on. I was the last one on the plane, but I didn't make anybody wait. I sat down, and 2 minutes later, we pushed
awesome.
back. It was awesome.
You got to love Huntsville Airport for that. And especially living over here. It's so nice. It's like when Zach lands from a trip, he calls me when he lands, and then I leave to go pick him up, which is fantastic.
That's what we do.
That's great. It's great.
I have learned, though, you have to sometimes wait till the door actually opens, because I've sat on the tarmac for 50 minutes waiting for ground crew.
Oh, God.
Just with staff shortages and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have Wendy can track me okay, I've landed, but I might not be getting off the plane for another 50 minutes.
And
so
their baggage is not
just
the
wait till
fastest
people
either.
get up and we're actually exiting the plane. Okay, now you can go.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty convenient. There's no doubt. So
Megan, you have a first-class organization.
Thank you.
And I really love the professionalism in every little detail. I can see it, and I can appreciate that.
thank you.
And knowing somebody like Morgan, how excited she is. She's probably the most photogenic person I've ever met. But I think
Her face, she's always like, I'm the happiest. She's
Yeah.
she's adorable. Yeah. She's so sweet.
and like always, thank you for carving out time from your life and your family to be here tonight, and look forward to working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it as well.
All right,
Thank
all
you
the
guys.
best.
All right. Thank you.
See you later.